On behalf of our governor to lay out the budget priorities for the coming year. And that will be an exciting session. So I want to make sure we have time for her to speak. So without further ado, I know our first speaker is Captain Fiojaro from Transit District 2. Captain, we have a microphone over here if you'd like to use it. Thank you.
All right, good. It's working? Everyone hear me? All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Antonio Fiojaro. I'm the Training Officer, Transit District 2 in the NYPD. Transit District 2 covers the area that you folks represent. And I'm also here today with Brian Giordano, Brenda Benscombe, and Jimmy Rudolph, who are all part of District 2. We just wanted to introduce ourselves to you and explain to you our new philosophy.
Thank you.
It's called neighborhood policing. Some of you may have heard of neighborhood policing. Basically, neighborhood policing is a new method that we take and the way we deploy our resources every single day. Essentially, it's a way to build better bonds and more bonds with members of the community all over the city. Now, we just started this in transit, and we really are trying to reach out to as many people as possible. Our goal is to build as many bonds with all of you, with the people that we represent, the people that we serve every single day, and we just want you all to understand that we're here for you. If anyone here does want my contact information or the contact information to point people for neighborhood policing, we want to give that out to you. That's including our email addresses, our cell phone numbers. If you guys have a problem, and maybe you call 911, sometimes you're scared to call 911, sometimes you don't want to call 311 because you're unsure of the response, you could call us. We're going to give you our cell phone numbers, we're going to give you our email addresses. We want you to understand that we're here for you. Sometimes just making a phone call to 311 or 911 may not get the job done because let's say you have, we don't do street level enforcement for the most part, or let's say someone's parked in your driveway or something that you feel about means or broken or whatever. You know, if you call 311, by the time we get there, that car might be gone. So it helps to have the phone number for a neighborhood policing officer because you have direct access and you can explain to them your issues. Sometimes if you want to sit down and talk or come to your house, whatever makes you guys feel better and actually get the job done more efficiently, that's what we're trying to do. So I know I don't have too much time to talk, but finish it up?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Guys, if you want any information, we're in the back, please reach out to us. Feel free to talk to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And this has been a very successful program so far. So we expect it will be wonderful.
Absolutely. I can go on, but I don't want to take up too much time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
for your service.
Thank you, Sergeant. Appreciate it. Our next speaker, Fiona Young from Brian Kavanaugh's office.
Can I get those?
And then Peter, I'll have you come up right after.
I'll be the go-between.
Perfect. Yeah.
You got the policeman?
Hi, I'm Fiona from Senator Kavanaugh's office. Really quick, Senator is the chair of the Housing Committee session, and excited to have this past couple of weeks. We passed early voting and the closing of the LLC depot, which were both bills Senator Kavanaugh was part of, and we're just hoping to do more this session. And if there's anything regarding housing that I can help with, please reach out to our office. I'm not a legislative person, but I can direct you to the right person. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Noonan from Assemblymember Julian News' office.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Peter from Assemblymember News' office. Just a few quick things. So on the back table back there, I have our monthly report, which details what we've been up to this last month. But the main thing that I want to talk about is we're having our annual legislative and budgetary town hall on February 3rd, Sunday, at the Madden Cancer Center at 197 East Broadway. And I know it's Super Bowl weekend, and I know everybody wants to go and watch, but that's why we have multiple panels. We have about 6 panels. Everything from resiliency and environmental justice to housing. We have experts for each panel. There are specific times laid out on the flyer back there, so you can just show up for the panel that you're most interested in. We have multiple experts that will be able to talk about anything you guys might want and answer any questions that you guys might have. So please keep an eye out for that. It'll be from 11:30 to 6 p.m. So please RSVP so we know how many people are coming. There will be refreshments and it'll be a great time.
And
So,
you should have a TV.
Oh yeah, we also have TV. So if anything, if anybody wants to see what's happening, then we just put up the Super Bowl, even though it starts at 6. So yep. So if you guys have any issues, any problems that you guys might have, then please let me know, and I'll be able to help you out. Okay.
Thank you, Peter. We look forward to it. Hannah Weinerman from Congressman Jerry Nadler's office, and then Andrew Tang. I'll have you up right after.
Hi everyone, so I'm Hannah from Congressman Nadler's office. We are working on reopening the government. The Senate is taking up two, the Senate is taking up 2 bills today, so we'll see what progress is happening. I'll tell you that our office and other congressional offices are working really hard. With that said, if you have any questions about federal benefits, which agencies are open, which agencies are affected, when benefits will run out, just please call our office. I'm happy to chat with you afterwards, but definitely call our caseworkers. The chairman of the Judiciary Committee is very busy, but one of the things that we've been working on is immigration. So earlier this month, he went to the border to check on one of the detention centers. They're working on a lot of oversight. I don't know if you saw recent headlines about they found out thousands of more people were families were separated. There's a memo about separating families, so we're working really hard on that. That's a passion of his. And then to DOJ oversight, Whitaker is coming before the committee on February 8th. And we're going to grill him. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Andrew.
Good evening, everybody. First thing what I'm going to talk about is community board applications. You want people who are interested in serving their community board. It doesn't have to be community board 1 if you work or live, and if you work in community board 2 or community board 7, you're eligible to apply to those community boards. If you go to school in those areas, you can apply as well. So all applicants should apply by February 8th, 2019. That's the deadline. We want people to apply online, as it's quick, simple, and we will know if we receive your application or not. But I do have paper applications in the back for those who prefer the traditional way of mailing it in and having it postmarked by February 8th as well. And for the current board members, if you guys want to reapply, I'll send you guys emails. Please reapply as soon as possible. So you won't hear from me anymore regarding that. And so next year is the U.S. Census. We're doing we're trying to get a census of all people across the United States. And in March, our office will announce our Census Complete Count Committee. And we want each community board to form a committee or task force regarding census. And we'll be sponsoring a forum on census with Representative Carolyn Maloney sometime soon. A couple more items I want to mention. The state of the borough. We try to do this every year. Last year we didn't
Andrew, I'm going to move along. Thank you.
We didn't have a state of borough event last year, but this year will be on February 24th, Sunday, 1 to 4 p.m.
We finished
at
this by
NYU
6:30.
Skirball Center at Washington Square South. Have flyers in the back.
1.47.
And the rest of the stuff I don't have time to mention, but it's in our newsletters on our
And you
website.
need a red and gold one for Chinese Thank you, New Andrew. Year.
Thank you, Andrew. Great job. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. Valentina Jones and Valentina, minute and a half.
Okay.
If you don't mind. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Valentina Jones. I'm a registered nurse and a licensed mental health counselor. I'm here to talk about the Manhattan Detention Center. We sent a letter to
You get this one?
Yeah.
Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. And basically, most of what we had to say was about reform. We did say one thing about community, which I will share with you, and that was that we advocate for portions of any revenue generated by utilization of land on Rikers Island be used to fund community programming. For some reason, the people at our meetings very much think that they're going to use that land for some purposes. My purpose for coming tonight is that there was a resolution by this community board in September that said you opposed a suggestion that the required curb action for this issue cover all 4 boroughs. So my understanding from going to Community Board 3's meeting was that
And we
the
won on that
work
one.
should start in March.
Yeah.
So I was coming to find out, do we need to like write a letter immediately? But I was someone told that they have conceded and that it will be separate. Is this correct? Okay, good, thank you. So I just plan to speak next month at the land use committee.
Wonderful, thank you. Jonathan Joseph, Jonathan,
Is that a minute and a half? You did right.
beautiful. You were under that, thank you. We owe you some time.
Yeah, please.
Yes, Jonathan, thank you.
Jonathan Johnson. I'm a resident down in Battery Park City for 26 years. Real estate broker, probably the most transactions this year as an individual. And I'm very concerned about the land lease at Gateway, and I'm very concerned with the land lease in Battery Park City, 2020. We have 49 years left. Is there any response? We know what's going on. Everybody says nobody's talking to anybody.
Well, I'll give you an update, but yes, there is a coalition. They're meeting with the authority. They've made a proposal, and they're waiting to hear back from the authority.
Thank you. That was my question. If anybody else wants to talk about it, I'd be happy to spend some time.
Thank you, Jonathan. Joshua David. Oh, I did get that right, Joshua, right? Okay.
Pardon me. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Joshua David, a board member of Friends of Plus Pool, the nonprofit that's working to build the world's first floating self-filtering public swimming pool in the river waters of New York City. I'm also the co-founder of the Highline. I came tonight with the hope that CB1 will support siting Plus Pool in the waters of CB1. Specifically, I hope that CB1 will include Plus Pool in the priorities it gives EDC when commenting on community needs for the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade. I know that the Plus Pool staff has had conversations with CB1 members, and I know that there's been talk of possibly doing a town hall about the Plus Pool, which we'd certainly welcome. But I came to briefly speak tonight because the city is moving quickly on Esplanade design and will be looking for your input soon. So just briefly, what is Plus Pool? It's a floating swimming pool, free to the public, filled with a constant flow of river water, brought to safe swimming standards by an innovative filtration system. Our engineers custom designed the system to filter contaminants from New York City's combined sewage overflow and other contaminants. The system is being tested, refined, and it has proven itself to bring Plus Pool river waters to the safe, clean standards of bathing beaches. We have an environmental mission. We want to protect and ensure access to our most precious natural resource, our waters. And here in CB1, we're surrounded by water on 3 sides, but because of pollution, we cannot safely swim in it. We have a social mission as well, and plans for a variety of community programs, some of which we've already deployed citywide, like our free Learn to Swim program for children in rental housing developments. We've done the groundwork, the pool is designed, the filtration system is tested and proven. We have an institution in place and supporters across the city to steward the project. To move forward, what we need is a lease on a small area of water from the city and a safe access point, which is why I'm here today. We've identified several sites along the Esplanade that are feasible for Plus Pool. We hope that you will find the idea of swimming in the river exciting and request that EDC and other agencies work to make Plus Pool a key part of the district's evolving riverfront. Thank you for the
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Looking forward to working with you. And I now have a hold them both up. Elizabeth Forsythe and Christina Rockles. I hope I pronounced that properly.
They're also,
And which we have some type of saying 2 minutes for you, okay?
2 minutes together, because we know you guys.
Oh, you're negotiating already. All right, 3 minutes for the 2 of you.
We'll just take 2, I'm sorry.
That'd be more than what Joshua said.
I appreciate the extra, but Josh did a great job. Tina and I really just wanted to stop in on a cross night, Roberts, between the 2 of us, we have 30 years living downtown.
Speak into the microphone if you don't mind.
Yes.
Thank you.
My voice is going. 30 years living downtown as families, and we are here to represent the families that are excited about swimming in the East River, though with this weather, probably not the best right now. And as Josh mentioned, it's not only the STEM programming that they do and the Learn to Swim programming with NYCHA, but also for the families. As we have lived down here for approximately 12 years and 16 years apiece. We've seen the community change, and we both are raising children down here. So what that plus pool would do for all of us that are having children down here is a really big deal. And so we're really excited to have plus pool come in. Tina, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it really rounds out sort of the all-season attraction of Lower Manhattan now because we have a couple of ice skating rinks on either side and some amazing playgrounds. But you know, there's just no swimming, so it would be incredible. And more families are still coming down to
we have a
financial
pool
district,
at
or
Manhattan.
Lower Manhattan, sorry.
We have a pool at
Financial
the
district
two
center. But Lower Manhattan, so this
So
would
this is
certainly
another
be
pool.
a boom for the
We
neighborhood.
need an east side pool.
That's what
We
this
need
is
a
about.
free
Plus pool.
That's what this is about.
That's it.
Thank you so much. We're looking
Thank
forward
you.
to it. Justine Fletcher.
Excuse me for my broken glasses.
Uh-oh.
Can't quite see.
I'm sorry you can't,
I know, well, we'll see how I talk if I can't see. All right, give me a second.
Okay, so sorry, my name is Justine Kucha, and I'm here today speaking on behalf of Democracy for Battery Park City. And I just want to take a minute, really, just to not let this die. Talking about our elected officials getting together with the mayor, the governor, the Battery Park City Authority to help make Battery Park City affordable for the people who built it, the middle class people who moved in here back in the 70s and the 80s, stayed through the 90s and the early 2000s, and made Battery Park City what it is today. And last time I was here, I talked about $100 million being enough. $100 million is half the surplus, or a little bit less than half the surplus that went to the city and the state coffers last year from the Battery Park City Authority's excess funds. I'd like it capped. I'd like some of that money put back into Battery Park City. I'd like some of that money put into resiliency for Battery Park City and all of Lower Manhattan. Not taking out bonds, just mortgaging Battery Park City residents, whether they're owners or renters future. And I just would like to call attention to the fact that the recent deals that the Battery Park City Authority was able to make with Pure Aid, I believe also Gigino's at Wagner Park. They made deals because those restaurants and those businesses were complaining that they were not making enough money and they could not afford to stay there. Shocking. That's kind of what I'm saying, isn't it? And they can make a deal with them if they don't have enough money, but what about the people of Battery Park City? Thank you.
Thanks to you. Thanks to everybody for the public comments. They're important input to us. I want to introduce, tonight we have a special guest who's going to spend some time with us. And just to introduce her, and I will probably mispronounce your name, so forgive me. I want to introduce Ruth Ann Vismusis, who's the commissioner of HCR, which is an amalgam of about 7 older housing organizations at the state level. Now, she is here not just to talk about that. The commission is here to present on the governor's proposed budget and the priorities it represents. Now, she has, I'm sure we'll spend hours questioning her. So we've asked her to present for about 20 minutes, and then I will open it up for questions and answers, but I'm going to try and force that to be about 10 minutes. Because between the budget and her current role, I'm sure will be fascinating. So Ruth Ann, thank you.
Thank you, Anthony, and good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here on behalf of Governor Cuomo to present the 2020 budget. I am also a resident of CD1, so I feel like I have a little home team advantage.
Bravo. Come to the meetings more.
All right.
I'm sure you're in Albany, though.
It's a short walk home, at least.
That's true, that's true. I'm going to set a timer to make sure that I don't go late. So thank you. Yes, I'm Ruth Ann Vismusis. I'm the State Housing Commissioner. As Anthony said, HCR is sort of an amalgam of a series of agencies that include some that people are a little more familiar with, including DHCR, which is the executive agency that supervises the rent stabilization and rent control systems in the city of New York and surrounding jurisdictions, something that is very much on people's minds as we head into June, as well as the DHFA, the State Housing Finance Agency, and Sunny Mae, which is our single-family mortgage agency, just to put a little plug in for the state and housing. We impact a lot of New Yorkers all across the state, so I'm happy to always talk about anything housing related. But tonight, I'm going to talk about the governor's budget agenda, which is here about 58 slides long, so I speak fast, so I will go through them as quickly and as coherently as I can. There's also a 300-page budget book online. Should you not be able to sleep in the middle of the night, you can read in depth the 250 proposals that are in the governor's budget. It is at budget.ny.gov, easy to find, easily searchable. That's a funny fun. Anyway, so we are beginning a new term with a lot of unprecedented challenges. I feel like that doesn't look very close to one. Sorry.
So
but I had to do it.
Is whatever font
No, just
put it in, is it on the computer? So you can pick the different font.
I should tell some more jokes, but I don't have any more jokes. Sorry.
Click reveal password here.
Yeah. That's why they.
All our passwords are I love Andrew Cuomo, just to be clear. So that's
That's why we still have chalkboards. Yes.
protect against passwords.
Oh.
Well, I couldn't really write out the whole budget with Charles.
Just put it all down to CV1 and then we're set. We're okay.
All the budget, the $160 billion.
Yeah.
Really? Everyone has a strategy.
Exactly.
We are board number one for a reason.
There's a lot of good stuff going on in the board body.
Yeah.
Like 5 minutes, maybe find another agenda item really quickly.
Yeah.
What? Do you want to,
I can go through the DM report really quick.
why don't we do that? We'll take a 5-minute break, and once you do that, wait. Actually, we'll get some business out of the way. So I think you all have copies of the minutes. So unless there's any comments on it,
Move to accept.
do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the December minutes? Any opposed or refused? Abstentions? Thank you. Joe, do you want to do a quick treasurer's report? Or should we hold that after this presentation? Why don't we hold that? I know he was here.
I think he just stepped out.
Yeah. Lucian, let's have our district manager's report.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucian Reynolds. I'm the district manager of CB1. Nice to see you in the new year. So I'm going to start by talking about the Hope Count, which is coming up because it's very soon. I want this to be at the top of everyone's mind. The 2019 Hope Count is coming up on the 28th of this month. It's from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. For those of you just hearing about this for the first time, HOPE stands for Homeless Outreach Population Estimate. It is an annual point-in-time survey of New Yorkers sleeping unsheltered on the streets and subways. The counting is performed by city employees and incredible volunteers. If you wish to take action on this, please visit nyc.gov/hope, or you can call 311 for more information. The government shutdown continues to impact the lives of people all around us in Community District 1. We know the direct impact the shutdown is taking on federal employees. Many live and work around you in the district. We are still waiting to hear the final impact of the shutdown on those who receive federal benefits from the Department of Agriculture, such as EBT, or through HUD, such as Section 8. One item about the MDC. Back in July of 2018, a council member called one of the first community meetings around the MDC. The meeting was attended by a number of administration officials, including the Chief of Staff to the Department of Corrections. It was the first time that I heard the parking lot in front of the MDC is actually a public plaza. In fact, I'm told that the plaza was part of the community benefits agreement for the first MDC. This led me to start counting how long it would take for someone to step up to the plate and return this plaza back to the community from under the wheels of scores of commuter vehicles. As of today, more than 5 months have passed since that meeting, and I will continue keeping track of how long it will take until the plaza is made a public open space again. So I had a picture of that on the, for everyone to see.
On the government.
So we'll have a plaza
We'll
count.
flash it.
Thank you. Last week, I attended a walk through the area that will be used for the Fashion Week street activity permit that the board voted on last month. I used the opportunity to echo board concerns about pedestrian clearance by the tent along Varick, signs warning people about the said difficulties to allow them to plot a different course if they wish to not walk through the area with the tent, and making sure that access to St. John's Lane from Beach Street was not impeded in any way. The applicants had already incorporated those concerns into their plan, and the Mayor's Office of Citywide Events was very supportive of the CB1's perspective on this. Lastly, BMCC Pool reopens to the community. After years of renovation, the pool at BMCC is once again open for community use. It doesn't appear to be free, but there were significant discounts for people over the age of 65. So if anyone wants any more information about any of these items, please find me after the meeting. I'll be more than happy to connect you with anything.
Thank you, Lucian. Commissioner, that was quick. Thank you for adjusting. We don't have that many sponsors, obviously.
Okay, take two. I'm just gonna pick up where I left off. Like 17 minutes. All right, so we begin a new term, as everyone knows, facing unprecedented challenges. The federal government, as many of you sort of read and see in the newspapers and on the television, is exploiting heat and really trying to take the nation backwards. But New York will lead the way forward. We build on our historic
There's
record
not much. You
accomplishments
go ahead.
that
You know
include
it's
marriage equality, $50 minimum wage, paid family leave, 2% property tax, free college tuition at public schools, the lowest uninsured rate in history, really an enormous accomplishment an enormous list of accomplishments. And the governor has laid out a justice agenda for the first 100 days that include, I won't read all of these, but include ensuring a progressive tax system, repealing SALT, protecting quality, affordable health care, codifying reproductive rights, gender equality, gun violence, infrastructure, MTA, the DREAM Act, a Green Deal, keeping housing affordable for New Yorkers, something near and dear to my heart, obviously, legalizing adult use of cannabis, and I'll talk through, maybe not everything, but a lot of these in a little bit.
So maybe you want to just...
It's an ambitious agenda, but with the Democratic Senate, there's a unique opportunity to get it done. So I'll just run through a bunch of these. So codifying reproductive rights. So we begin by fighting to protect reproductive justice from a federal administration that's intent on rolling back Roe v. Wade and putting New Yorkers at risk. So the governor is seeking to pass the Reproductive Health Act and the Comprehensive Contraceptive Act within the first 30 days of the new session, and to enshrine Roe v. Wade in the state constitution. In addition, we'll pass the Equal Rights Amendment, which will add sex as a protected class. Access to quality, affordable child care. This year's budget also invests in helping low-income New Yorkers access high-quality, affordable child care. Affordable health care. The federal government wants to roll back the progress that we've made, expanding health care coverage to a record 95% of New Yorkers. So we will seek to codify the health exchange into law and to pass a law to ensure that pre-existing conditions continue to be covered by insurance companies, regardless of what happens at the federal level.
We need to be covered without raising the rates.
Last year was supposed to be a call to action for gun safety,
Yeah,
but
but
the
I mean,
federal
that's...
government did nothing.
Sure, we'll
and it's
cover
something
it,
we've
but we're going to
seen
charge you
year
100
over
times
year.
more.
So the 2019 gun safety agenda includes passing the red flag law, banning bump stocks, extending the waiting period for purchasing a gun from 3 days to 10 days. New York will continue to lead on gun safety and make our nation-leading laws even stronger. The DREAM Act. The federal government has declared a war on new immigrants into this country, and we will show our support for those immigrants by passing the DREAM Act to give all New Yorkers access to higher education. In terms of voting laws, and then some of these have been talked about a bit recently, expanding access to voting by enacting early voting, allowing voting by mail, instituting safety voter registration, synchronizing the federal and the state elections, and ensuring paid time off to vote. We'll continue to update the voting laws to ensure the sanctity of the democracy. Ethics reform. The governor is looking to close the LLC loophole, to ban corporate campaign contributions, to overhaul the campaign finance system, ending outside income for lawmakers, establishing a lobbying code of ethics, and looking at procurement reform. Public sector unions. So last year we enacted a policy to help shield unions from the devastating Janus decision. And this year we'll look to cover public sector unions at the local level to ensure that workers have labor rights in the gig economy. Affordable housing, again, a topic near and dear to my heart, and something as the rent laws come up for renewal in June that is very much in the public dialogue. The lack of affordable housing is a crisis across the state, really, and across the nation, as many people are well aware. We're going to continue our record investments in housing and rent reform regulations, including ending vacancy decontrol. Bit of like personal privilege for those of you that don't know, the governor, with the legislature support, passed a $2.5 billion housing plan 2 years ago, and so the state has been deeply involved in financing multifamily rental housing, supportive housing, looking at preserving existing senior housing and 202 housing, and so we have a very ambitious agenda to create or preserve 100,000 units of affordable housing across the state over the next 5 years, and we are in our second year of that and will continue. Passing the Child Victims Act to provide victims with a path to justice. An equal rights agenda, so enacting agenda banning conversion therapy, making surrogacy legal in New York State. Again, as the federal government continues to discriminate, we will stand up for the LGBTQ community everywhere that we can. Legalizing adult use of cannabis. We will end the disproportionate criminalization of one race over another by regulating, legalizing, and taxing the adult use of cannabis. The criminal justice system. So the governor is very focused on criminal justice reform. We will work to address injustice in the system by ending cash bail and enacting speedy trial and discovery reforms. On taxes, as people have also heard the governor talk a lot about the SALT tax as a form of double taxation for the state of New York. As many people sort of know, New York State sends more money to the federal government than it receives back. The federal government's elimination of the SALT deductibility is a targeted assault on New York that will cost the state more than $14 billion annually. In order to protect taxpayers, a couple things will stay in the budget: maintaining the millionaire's tax, which is set to expire, making the 2% property tax cap permanent, and continuing middle-class tax cuts this year. So they will go from 6.85% down to 6.21% for earners that are between $40,000 and $150,000 a year, and going from 6.85 to 6.49 for those between $150,000 and $300,000. Infrastructure. So the governor talks a lot about infrastructure, and as you can see, there has been over $100 billion invested in infrastructure across the state in airports, not just JFK, LaGuardia, and the New York City airports, but as well, as I often tend to do, flying into the Rochester and the Syracuse and the upstate airports. There's been a lot of improvements in the upstate airports as well. We see it in New York City in the bridges, in the Kosciuszko Bridge, the Bayonne Bridge, the Goethals Bridge. There's an enormous amount of building that has been done so far, and there's more to come. So this year, the governor proposed adding an additional $150 billion into infrastructure, creating 500,000 middle-class labor jobs. The Green Deal, so there's been much talk about this recently in the news too. While the federal government turns a blind eye to the crisis that faces the planet, New York will continue to lead the way, looking at 100% carbon-free electricity by 2040, the fastest in the nation, and ultimately eliminating the state's carbon footprint, making historic investments into clean energy projects and infrastructure statewide to create thousands and thousands of jobs for New Yorkers, and a commitment to a just transition to ensure that all New Yorkers benefit. New York really wants to lead the way as the green economy takes off. Drinking water. We'll invest in our clean water infrastructure, doubling our historic $2.5 billion investment to protect children and our children's children. We must also pass the Consumer Right to Know Act that requires labeling of products that contain over 1,000 carcinogens and other toxins, including asbestos, benzene, and PCBs. Education equity. So thanks to our new data reporting requirements, we know that poor
too often do not receive an equitable share of funding from the school district. So while funding was going to the poorest school districts, it was not necessarily going to the poorest schools within those districts. So as we continue to invest record amounts, we want to make sure that we are fighting for education equity in those districts. In terms of higher education, the Excelsior Scholarship Program will enter its final phase, increasing the family threshold to $125,000, allowing over 100,000 New York City students to attend tuition-free. In terms of the budget and the numbers and sort of the big spending categories, this is sort of how it breaks out. So education, healthcare, infrastructure, and the middle class tax cut are what drive the budget. Overall, the state has investments that obviously cover the gamut of priorities that impact New Yorkers, including housing and homelessness, clean water, downtown revitalization, environmental protection, state parks, the opioid epidemic
What's
that
the
Tracy
downtown
engaged, this gives you a little
revitalization
bit of some numbers attached to
Let me
those
ask her.
investments that were included in the
We
budget
can
this
ask
year.
questions, right? When she's done.
Absolutely.
In terms of how the budget works, so the governor's very focused on limiting budget increases year over year. And so in general, the budget only increases by 2%. And the way that's done is that school aid and state Medicaid and health spending, which are the two primary spends of the state budget, go up by a larger amount, and then generally agencies and other state operatings are kept flat or at limited increases in order to balance out the other priorities of school and health spending. This year's budget will advance the unprecedented momentum that we're seeing across New York City. So a little bit about infrastructure in the city. We'll invest $23 million to finally complete Hudson River State Park. Open the $20 million Shirley Chisholm State Park out on Jamaica Bay in Brooklyn, which will be the largest state park in New York City. Opening this year, 4 years ahead of schedule, will be the new Kosciuszko Bridge. Opening in 2020, the new Moynihan Train Hall at the Penn Farley Complex. Also opening in 2020, a new Long Island Railroad entrance at 33rd Street and 7th Avenue in the mid-block. Jones Beach revitalization. A new LaGuardia Airport, which if anyone's been to LaGuardia, you can see happening. Operational by 2021. JFK, $13 billion investment. New Javits Convention Center, so adding 1.5 million square feet to help bring the Javits Center into the modern age and be competitive with some of the larger conventions that happen around the country. The MTA. So this year we're proposing a reliable funding stream for the MTA in the form of congestion pricing. So tolls will be electronically charged to enter into the Manhattan Central Business District at the entrances below 60th Street as shown on the map. It will raise about $15 billion in capital for MTA, so not the entire capital budget for the MTA, but certainly a very, very, very large influx of dollars into much needed critical repairs. And together, we will build a better New York City for generations to come. So that is my budget presentation, and I have some answers, but not all of them. But if people have questions, I'm happy to take some.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I'm going to handle it for 10 minutes, so if I don't fall on you, but please ask a question, not a statement. Paul?
Yeah, two quick things. First of all, thank you very much. All right. And we have a lot to talk about congestion pricing, incidentally. But first of all, the pre-existing conditions need to be held at their present cost. To say we will accept pre-existing conditions and coverage, but bump you up 100% is the issue. So I just wanted to say that I hope that's part of it. What is the downtown revitalization plan? Since we don't seem to know what it is and we're downtown.
Yes, so the state is divided into 10 regional economic development areas. So New York City would be one of those, and there's 9 of them across the state. And there is a committee of people in those regional economic development committees. And each year, complementary to that, the governor put out, starting 3 years ago, $100 million a year, $10 million for each REDC,
for downtown revitalization. So each REDC and their committee put forth a location within their economic development area to be eligible to get the $10 million Downtown Revitalization Initiative award. So last year, the award went to the South Bronx. There's a more specific, was in the South Bronx. The year prior to that, the award was in Jamaica. And I'm not sure if it's your part, maybe we're heading into the third year. So the New York City REDC put forth Jamaica and the South Bronx as their proposal for the $10 million.
Who appoints those people?
We can follow up with you on who's on the REDC. You should certainly all know. I think it's probably about 10 or 12 people.
No, but who appoints them?
Oh, it's a governor. So the DRI is a governor initiative. So it's $100 million that comes out of the state budget, and the REDC.
So there's no local representative?
They are. No, they are. There's local. They are.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can send you who's on the REDC.
Matthew Washington, the deputy borough president, is one of the Manhattan people.
Very good man.
Thank you. Well, first of all, my name is Justine Kucha, and on behalf of Democracy for Battery Park City, I want to thank the governor for signing into law the bill that put 2 residents of Battery Park City onto the board of the Battery Park City Authority. And my follow-up question is, great for 2, we wanted 4 at least.
Okay.
And if we can get that bill put before him again this year, we'd like to know, number 1, would he be willing to sign it?
Okay.
And number 2, if he is willing to sign it, will he commit to that before we go through the rigmarole and have to jump through hoops?
Okay.
And you're probably not going to answer that right now.
No, but there's questions happy to think about that.
But what? The governor needs to answer that. But yeah, thank you, but we want more.
Okay.
And then my second question is about the residents of Gateway Plaza. The governor has made deals now with Roosevelt Island and in Harlem for affordability, and it's preserved affordability for both of those entities in those 2 places. And Gateway Plaza has been struggling, and it's coming up at the end of its stabilization lease, and would really like the governor's support and help in getting some affordability protections forward for the whole building, as well as the other ground rent information that you've heard me talk about before, but specifically to maybe what happened upstate or uptown, come downtown.
Revitalize us.
In state-owned property.
It's not,
Battery-
state leased.
Battery Park City.
Yes, not the building itself. Yes. So we, as a state housing commissioner, questions like that are near and dear. We are working. We obviously very much want to see affordable housing preserved everywhere we can across the state, especially in high-poverty areas like New York City. So we are working with BPCA, certainly from the HCR perspective, and the owners to try to get to a good outcome for that. I don't have any news to break here, but we are aware of the issue and are working on with them to get to that outcome.
Okay, Tom, you have a question now?
I was just...
What are as many as possible? That's the question. And now we'll move on.
Thank you so much. This is almost all of it is so welcome. Just on the election reform part, is there also going to be some reform of the primary systems and joining and switching parties?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but we can, unless you know areas, we can circle back.
I'm not 100% sure. By the way, my name is Aries.
To not be locked out of Democratic primaries because you were independent.
Right.
I know there are provisions for same-day registrations, and vote by mail, and we're going to combine the federal and the state primaries for June instead of September. But as for making it easy to
Party affiliation.
To change your affiliation, I don't think that's
Same
part of
day
the government's
party
proposal. But they had a really huge agenda in the legislature this year for reforming our democracy, so I think if that's not on the table, it would be for the fall. And by the way, my name is Aries De La Cruz. I'm the governor's Manhattan regional representative. I used to work for the borough president. I can leave my business cards on that table. I'll leave my other meetings to go to, but I'll leave my business card, and all 600 members of Manhattan's community board, they have my number. So just don't call me at 1 a.m. and I will take on the roof of a bike.
Good, thank you. Paul.
Okay, on congestion pricing. obviously, an area like this would be uniquely impacted because every time we drive our cars out of the parking lot, we would presumably have to pay this large fee. Other cities, such as the role model that a lot of people hold up, London, have carved out or have greatly reduced prices for people in those areas. I know our assembly members talk about carve out. Is the governor open to some sort of reasonable concession? Not everyone down here is a millionaire. Sure, we can't afford to pay that kind of fee every time we have to drive our kids somewhere or take our parents somewhere.
Or go to a hospital.
So my understanding right now, based on our negotiations with the legislature, is that they're trying to do peak and off-peak times. There are, carve-outs are part of the conversation the elected officials are having with the governor, but it's still an ongoing conversation. Things are very fluid, and I would say if you have suggestions or fixes of that kind, or maybe senior citizens or low-income folks on middle income, that's something you can,
all of us.
that's something you can bring up with your legislators that they then take to the governor's legislative team if they have negotiations on what the best outcome is. But they're hoping, I believe it's about $50 million in revenue for congestion pricing. That's the idea. It's going to be part of. 50 million is not a great amount, but it's something. The MTA has a $30 billion capital deficit that we have to find the revenue from somewhere. It's not coming from Washington, and we don't want to raise people's taxes, and so congestion pricing is one of the suite of solutions that we have to help fund the MTA's much needed capital improvements. So talk to your legislators, also let the governor's office know about any. Let me know if you have any sort of ideas or suggestions or comments on the report.
Sure we will.
This will be a very heated debate, which I'm sure we will settle tonight, but I'm still sitting there thinking, I want to get Tammy. No,
So I have a question when you're looking at budget. What I did not see mentioned in there is governor's executive order about building a hurricane memorial in Lower Manhattan for the people. We passed a resolution asking for a resident to be on there because there was conversation by the governor of locating it in Battery Park City, which is the least representative of Puerto Rico as you could possibly be. So I'd like to see if you have any updates on that.
I don't, but we can get an update for you on that because I anticipated that as a question and asked it before I came down, but I didn't get an answer back before I came down to know what the sort of latest was. But we can, through Aries, we can circle back and get answers actually.
Perfect. And then just a follow-up to Paul's comment about congestion pricing. We are very good about talking to our legislators, but my hope would be that from you leaving this meeting that you would make sure to be able to relate to the governor that it is a fiery topic for Lower Manhattan and more discussion with Community Board 1 needs to be had direct.
Wait, Andrew,
Yeah, we basically want them to do what London does, and that's residents get it.
I'm not rushing something.
Of course, you have to include the
Apologies if
entire
I missed this
from
in the
where they're
presentation. But
posting
can you
the
comment a
price.
bit about the governor's views and strategies on resiliency for the parts of Lower Manhattan that were impacted by the storm and aren't currently covered by a specific plan or strategy?
I don't have any specific information on that, but if you send me an email, I can get an answer.
And sorry, say it again, you were looking at where there's things in the budget? Was that your, or just general strategies?
Well, I didn't see it in the budget, so is there a plan, and if so, how is it being addressed?
The East Coast Resiliency Plan is now funded up to almost $1.4 billion. We have $100 million for all of community districts now. So that's the chapter now. We're looking for all contributions.
Right.
Good. All right.
Two questions, one local, one regional. The local question. I'm not sure if you were here earlier when a resident named Jonathan Johnson got up and raised questions about the structure of the land lease in Battery Park City. What people here are facing is best case, 3% per year fixed cost increases in perpetuity. Worst case, that sunsets, you get a 6% of fair market value, and everybody's bankrupt, walks away from their homes, comes into foreclosure. What does the government plan to do about that? Regional question is, billions of dollars for Kennedy and for JFK and LaGuardia. Neither of the plans increases capacity by lengthening runways an inch. Neither of the plans raises those airports, both on the waterfront, 1 inch out of the floodplain. Does that make any sense? And when will we see plans that elevate the airport, say, 10 or 12 feet and add new runways? Because, new terminals are great, but what they need is more capacity to land planes.
So I would say on your land lease question, we are,
7
again,
o'clock,
from my
she's
like,
not here.
purview
Or am I missing
for
her?
the housing commissioner, we are aware of that and we are working on
You
that
see
issue.
her?
It is also an issue in Roosevelt Island, and there are land leases and
I don't think
different
she's
issue, but
here.
similar, that there are land leases that are on a shorter tenure.
Text
So
her to see what she's doing.
that is on our radar to be addressed. On infrastructure, I would have to find someone much smarter than I am at infrastructure to give an answer as to why that is in or not in, or why it was included or not, but we can circle back on that.
So that's many billions that don't solve the two worst problems of those airports.
Understood.
I want to take one more question. All right, we're pretty close on time. Bruce?
I'm sorry I missed the beginning of your presentation.
That was the best part.
Always.
So, I'm listening to what has been discussed, and, it's like a constant mantra of mine that since FDR isn't in the White House and Fiorello LaGuardia isn't the mayor, we're not getting money from heaven to do all of these incredible, wonderful, gigantic, multi-billion-dollar projects. And you're right, we can't be taxed much more, especially with the tax, quote, reform, unquote, bill, not bill, law. But the congestion pricing program, as it has been discussed, is onerous. It's really onerous for a whole range of people who live not only in Manhattan but lower Manhattan, for all kinds of reasons, which I don't have to go into now, and that really does have to be addressed. Now the question, the perennial question. We have a progressive Democratic mayor, and we have a progressive Democratic governor. Why can't they get along? It's necessary for the state of our city.
On behalf of the housing agency, and I speak, I think, for other executive agencies, the agencies work very well together. We are extremely well coordinated on the state and city level on housing policy issues. I think I wouldn't let stuff that maybe happens in the press that you read about imply that we don't all work towards common goals. I can't really answer that question, obviously. I think on your first one, I would say, and I would probably overcommit Aries, but I can do that because I'm in the microphone, to say that we should, congestion pricing is obviously an issue that is going to impact this community board and the couple around you much more so than maybe some folks across the bridges. So we should commit to coming back and talking when we have more details and the plan is more developed, to both explain it a little better and get additional input. So I will commit Aries. We can DOT. We will commit the right people to come back and talk about that.
Yeah.
I said that was the last one. You're the senior member here, so you're going to bring it home.
So knowing how our government works, who will be getting the exemptions from congestion parking?
So again, we don't have details on that tonight to talk about, but we will definitely, who's going to get an exemption in the congestion pricing sort of scenario.
Yeah.
So we'll come back and talk more about congestion pricing as more details.
Yeah. Only residents works fine.
Yeah, as residents.
There you go.
Really, the best thing as these negotiations happen is there are people who are elected to represent those voices to the governor's office, and that's your state. To an extent, your city council and your representative, really your state. But I'm not telling the governor's representative. To our attention, to the attention of their leadership, and the leadership makes negotiations with the governor's team and advisors on what the final shape of the bill and the regulations are going to look like.
Right.
So everything we talked about, these are all proposals. You have a chance to shape them from these feedback that you're giving us, which we then take back to your conversations with your elected officials. So for instance, how the Cannabis Act is going to be executed, how, all those other, these are all literally proposals, and that's why we're you to try to build some support, and also for you to talk to your legislators about whether you support them or don't, and that informs how they will vote.
So you'll let the governor know.
Suzanne, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming. I'm going to commit that people want to grab you afterwards to ask a question, maybe you'll settle down. Hopefully we'll see you and Aries more often.
Yeah.
This was valuable. I hope we can do it more often. So, having said that, Joel, do you want to report on the treasurer's report?
Hi, good evening. Well, first, congratulations are in order to our own Mariana Rivera. He got 100% votes, first time in 75 years in the Hall of Fame that the Hall of Fame inductee got 100% of the votes. So it's a good thing, and it's a happy note for us as we continue this meeting.
Enter Santa.
Second quarter was pretty quiet. The only thing that we needed to know was the temp services.
Do you have a card?
A placeholder for the $15,840 was approved by the city today, so we will now pay our 2 consultants going forward. Other than that, just expenses on general supplies and really nothing out of the ordinary. Personal services went down to $50,000 from about $55,000, and that was due to the union involvement for a well-deserved bump for Deanna and Lucy. Any questions?
Yes.
Please,
Send me the treasurer's report, please. Thank you.
Jamie, I can get your
Thank
copy.
you, Joel. And with that, last topic on our business session is the chair's report. And I will, as always, confine mine to hopefully just 10 minutes and set the example for all other committees. I know it's a full night now, January, and people want to get home. So, I don't know if Krista will be here, but we had a meeting with the city, or the borough DOT commissioner, and we had a commitment for a speed bump. Actually now called a speed hump. It's a little bigger than what was officially known. It will be implemented as early in this year as possible in front of Millennium High School. I want to really, I'm sorry she's not here, but publicly thank Tricia, who has been all over this, and through her perseverance, I facilitated me with DOT, and having everybody together in the light of day made things and commitments seem a little easier to get. So that was that. I mentioned, I sent out an email December 27th. Oh, that was the time. To opt in for whatever committees you wanted. I heard from about a dozen people. I spoke to some who said no change. I made a couple of changes, and you'll see that. I actually have that I'll run by the staff tomorrow at our meeting, and we'll send out notices of the committee's roster. But I want to point out, we also, for one reason, Erica Benson, who had been our co-chair for transportation. Good news and bad news. Good news is her business, she has a business she started with her partner, and it's doing well and taking so much of the time. The bad news is she's actually resigned effective now. So with that opening, I took the opportunity to look at some other co-chairs and really look at a new generation of leaders. I'm very happy to announce Devin Sue will join the Transportation Committee. Besides being smart and hardworking, he also has, he's more unblemished than we are, particularly when it comes to congestion pricing and other transportation issues. So I look forward to his family. There are some, I was going to say I volunteered her, but she will be working along with me. Personnel committee was Elizabeth Lewinson, who's home sick with the flu with a couple of kids tonight. And then Wendy Chapman will be joining as co-chair for environmental protection. A very passionate advocate for resiliency and environmental protection. And then finally, I'm sorry, with Alice. Yeah, well, I announced ours last month, but it deserves being announced again. Ours, we now have a full standing committee for what we call environmental protection. In fact, we just updated the description on the website. Take a look at it. And Wendy is joining that. And Andrew Zelka is, because Alice is moving on to the full committee chair, Andrew is joining Paul Holstein as waterfront and parks. Pardon me for putting resiliency in there. That is not part of their mission now. I spoke with Paul briefly, and what we've not always looked at is the cultural elements. We had a cultural subcommittee headed by Harold Reed, God bless him, and that was very effective. And I've asked Paul to consider bringing that mandate into the Waterfront and Parks Open Space Committee. So you'll hear more. Life is Island closing. Some may not be that interested. This will be a major euro that we are mandated to do. Now, they're talking about taking down 2 high-rises today of about 500,000 square feet and replacing it with one at about 1,300,000 to 1,400,000 square feet. The impact on this community, even though it's in a very northern sector, traffic, pollution, shadows, are all going to be weighed. Everyone knows the criminal justice system needs to be improved, but the impact on this community is important. There's a neighborhood advisory council. I attended the first meeting last week. I sent 3 letters off to the mayor's office. We are participating, but under process. This is a top-down process. The opposite of what we've done, for example, the Seaport Advisory Group, where we built with the borough president and our elected officials a grassroots advisory council. This is packed with people that the mayor has selected. And so it doesn't reconcile with New York, which is our sole responsibility. I've made that very clear. Lucian has done a wonderful job with Diane about expressing our concerns there. And we will do Euro, and that may start as early as March. Okay, you've heard about more ferry service. Wonderful thing conceptually. They'll be opening in 2020, essentially, a west side route from Staten Island to the pier in Battery Park City, and then up to 39th Street. And we have a lot of concerns that we're on the record with and we'll monitor it. But I suppose, sometimes the old supply and demand will work out. Be interesting to see how much that will be used. I will be calling for, we asked for some input from folks, but part of the vision is a major issue that we need to be on top of. How our city government works at all levels is up for fair game. And so I'll be looking at a task for that. Reggie sent out a notice to everyone about volunteering for a co-naming task force, and we'll be hearing more and more about that. I think we sent out a notice that the 9/11 Memorial has some open dates that are free to residents in the park. And if you need those dates, let us know, but I know we sent that out. I'm always sensitive to how much email everyone's getting. I try to minimize it, but forgive us if we wind up getting a bunch of things. New York Presbyterian, and Paul, you'll probably talk about this later, actually has a program about pay my bill. So if there are certain conditions and you need help with medical expenses, there is a program there. They are affiliated with Cornell Water. They came in to talk to us about making sure everyone understands the full range of facilities that both New York Presbyterian and Cornell have.
While Cornell there.
But they also have a project for all of us. It's a little more sophisticated, but think of it in terms of like an Ancestry or 23andMe. You can actually, under lots of privacy, submit an application to this and get a full, not just your DNA, but a full genome. The point of it, the benefit to them, is that they're looking to build in New York a cohort of about 1 million people. So So they'll have data about conditions, and this leads to what's called targeted medicine. So we'll send out information on your app. You may want to look at this with Mariana at one of their meetings with Francis about Health and Human Services. So you'll hear more about that. Priorities, my next slide. So we published our district needs statement and the budget request. You all have that. Our next thing, our urban fellow under Diane's leadership is working on a project to identify the whole budget process within the state. And we'll work on how to align that. That may be a task force or a committee process. Resiliency, still number one. We have so many priorities, it's hard to figure out where to spend your energy. But this has to be right up there. And so much so, we asked Alice to move up to a standing committee, and we had to press this even further. So I wanted to make sure you understand about the priority. ULO actions. I mentioned the Manhattan Convention Center coming up in March. We have Governor's Island ULO for some redevelopment on that island, which is critical. And it's come on and off, but at 137 Center Street with the downtown TV center, there may be a potential ULO action. They actually started and withdrawn. They may come back again. So I wanted you to understand the priorities. Now, next slide. Number one, well, there's no order, but a critical priority is to make 2013 the year of the East Side. Now, we have a lots of pieces that have to be looked at. The Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade, the Seaport Advisory Group, what goes on at the new Market Building. Paul and I at the next Seaport Advisory Council will be talking about a town hall meeting to look at things. And in there, this myth is always the development at 250 Water Street with Howard Hughes. So all that has to be set in place. We talked about what we wanted for here. Community center, open space, lots of other issues. Now is the time where things may align, where we need to push that and find not only solutions, but governance and sustainability there. Petwood Park hopefully will come up online fairly soon. And there may be other issues that I've not looked at. Bring them up to the committee. So that's a critical item. I had a picture of that new service. And you can see on the west side, from St. George, very similar, up to Battery Park City, and then up to Midtown. So just for your information. It was mentioned before, but the census is a critical item. Now, other community boards are much more concerned, rightfully, about undercounting of some of their population. We will face a similar thing. It may not be as dramatic here, but something we need to look at and make sure that we are on top of that. You all kind of knows, again, another email about some leadership questions. I signed up to a couple of them. I encourage you all to do that. There's land use, which is boring but important. There's a budget item, which may be very important, and I signed up for that, parliamentary procedures. And there's a new one this year for transportation. So that might be a good option. Bob's not here. He's on vacation. God bless him. He sent out a note that came across my email about helping out people who are not being paid during the government slowdown or closure. I only bring this up because sometimes we forget how important Manhattan Youth is to us, how much they do for our community, and this is just another example. So I wanted to, he's not here, but I wanted to make sure everybody understood. It's so easy to miss that. And I think I saw Trisha walk in. Right? You were the first time. I did mention the speed bump. Didn't want to steal a lot of your thunder, but I did want to recognize you for all the help you did. Give us more details later. Only 10 minutes. Okay. I think that's it for me. Yeah. Oh, executive committee. Now, I had to go to an MDC meeting with the mayor's office Diana. So Paul fills in and ran the executive committee meeting. You want to do the report?
Well, we talked about committee goals, and all of the chairs are encouraged to send their accomplishments and their goals to Lucian so that we can coordinate that and compare the accomplishments to our last needs statement and to look at the goals in preparing our next needs statement. So please, if you haven't already, chairs, please send your accomplishments and goals to the office. And there was a resolution about a street activity permit, and it turns out that there were enough questions raised by some of the other chairs, so we decided to send this back to Reggie, to the Transportation Committee, because this is for May, so even at our February meeting, we'd have the 90-day cover to take care of it. And it should be discussed in committee, because there's a lot going on with it. Thank you.
Paul, please say. We have personnel next, but I know Elizabeth is out tonight. You want to give a report?
Lucian could do it.
Yeah, so I can give a quick report. So 2 items for the Personnel Committee. One is an update on the staff. Tamar Hovsepian, who some of you may remember a number of years ago worked in the office. She's been on maternity leave for a number of years, but she decided to resign before the end of her maternity leave. So she won't be returning to the office. And then the second item was that we'll be renewing our contract with the consultants. We have a one-time renewal within the contract, which is great because it allows us to finish out the term, so we can have a full year without having to go through a punishing process with the comptroller's office for registering and approving our contract. So we'll be looking forward to another 6 months of working with our consultants. And then, of course, I'm always here to listen to feedback about how we can structure any future consulting. So thank you all, and that's all.
Bravo, good report. I'll turn it over to Sissy, you're next. And like everything else, unless there's a resolution, let's try and keep this around 10 minutes, but I know we all have to wait for it.
Thank you.
So yes, we have good news. We're on a roll, dare I say.
Bravo.
So after letting us know a year ago that a speed bump was not going to be feasible on South William Street leading up to the entrance of Millennium, where a student was struck almost exactly this time last year. We put a lot of pressure on them to come up with an alternate solution, and we floated the idea of a flashing crosswalk, a mid-block crosswalk, which they did not like, but we found one at another location. So that presented a little bit of a quagmire, and fortunately, when we, with the help of Anthony, who I also want to call out because it was so helpful to be able to call this meeting and to be able to have the follow-up with the city agencies, because it keeps everybody accountable. You know, if you have a conversation in September and they say the study is beginning now and we'll have some news in a few months, it's really important to see them again in a few months. And I think that it was a strategy that I think helped them as well to set their own, you know, they have a lot to do. And so it's a great example of when things work and why they work. So they came to the meeting. Ed Pinkard said that they had since done a review of speed bumps in general in Manhattan, and they found that they had to change and accommodate those regulations because of the issues we have with all this growth in infrastructure. And so now you are able to put a speed hump, I shouldn't call it speed bump, it's a speed hump that we're getting, which is 20 feet long, and which I didn't even know. You're allowed to put them within 70 feet of an intersection now, which is good to say out loud because there will be other instances and other committees where they could use this information. So we did in fact get the speed hump. We have asked that it get installed before March when the weather gets warmer and they start making their crossing to the plaza. We will be following up on that the first week of March. We also are hoping for a meeting with the SCA and DOE. As I reported on here, we have been working since last May to try to get the DOE to do something about this charter school at 26 Broadway that is temporarily sharing an entrance with Lower Manhattan Community School and the Urban Assembly. It has been an absolute disaster. We have had broken elevators, we've had children stuck between floors, we've had people climbing 12 floors of stairwells that are not to code, up and down with broken elevators. We've had principals using the key to override the elevators in the office part of 26 Broadway. This is obviously very, very bad. We again have asked Anthony to help us get a meeting together to discuss the plans for moving them to a different entrance. They were trying to refurbish the freight elevator, which was Elizabeth Rose's, in her last email before she stepped down, saying that that was their plan. So we are going to hold our feet to the fire on that this month and find out where the state of that freight elevator is, and if it's not functional, what the plan is to move this charter school. So that's that. Coincidentally, our other big issue involves the exact same people, which is so convenient. The 14th floor, some of them, the 14th floor of the Broad Street building that Millennium is in is up for lease. I mentioned this in here as well. We passed a resolution about it. We got a little information that the DOE has said that they are willing to do it if they can come up with the funding. So that's half the battle because, as you might remember, expanding a school without adding capacity has no precedent. And that's what we're asking for here. Millennium is at 133% capacity. They have class sizes that are over the UFT guidelines. We started the year at 37 in my daughter's class. So we are pushing to expand the space without adding capacity, wish us luck. And we have no resolutions, but we will hopefully have
Tricia, I have a question for you. I'm really a novice, but I remember hearing something about Resolution A's funding.
Yes.
Would that come into place for the elevator?
No, I should mention it. Well, no, actually, we had a PTA come to the meeting, which I should actually report on. We're helping them, and I don't have news yet, but they have applied for and gotten Reso A funding at IS 289, which they desperately needed.
Did they confirm that?
They did. They got some funding, but they don't. They're going for a bigger one, which I wanted to wait on and report back next month.
Yeah.
But it's so useful to have.
They were
our
confused.
PTAs
They
come,
heard they got
or,
it.
you know, if anybody here is at one of our local schools, a parent at one of our schools, it was so helpful to have this PTA come to our meeting and talk about their issues because they don't know about so many things available to them. And one of the things I want to commit to this coming year is to be a liaison between these grants, Reso A fundings, things that, you know, the borough president who just gave a ton of money to Millennium to convert their library. Margaret Chin has a bunch of discretionary funds that are up for grabs every year by our schools. Not all of the PTAs knew this, and so we're going to really push to get the ones who can make it to the
should
next
have
meeting.
some
But
funds
to answer your question, Reso A would not fall into
Would
this
not,
category.
okay.
It's a capital expense, and so I did go to the capital funding meeting at Tweed and put my good word in there as well. So we'll be following up on that.
What's stuff to work on?
It's just a minor thing, but that's only because of LFC. But 26 Broadway is LFC, and that should be 75 Broad.
You are correct.
So you and I understand why you put 26 Broadway.
I actually didn't put that, but I really appreciate you calling it out because we should make the change for just the records. We just have a flip there.
So it's,
It's 75 Broad Street.
Is it addressed at Millennium High School?
gotcha.
Yes.
All right, got it.
The 26 Broadway is the LMC issue, which isn't even on it.
Right,
So thank you, Wendy, for calling that out.
perfect. Thank you. Roger, landmarks and preservation.
Happy New Year, everyone. We have 3 items, 2 minor and 1 fairly large.
We have to take a roll call on one of the first ones.
Yes, we'll take them all together because the 2 minor ones are really rather minor. So
Okay.
first one is, excuse me, 200 Church, which is looking to secure the alcove. The applicant is a small business person and She didn't really understand how to go about this and seemingly didn't get much help from LPC. So she came with a proposal, as you can see in the resolution, it wasn't really appropriate, like a dungeon gate. We understand the need for her to secure her entrance, but we suggest she work with LPC to find a more appropriate accordion gate, which would have been there probably in the 50s when that kind of security was needed. So we're approving it, but subject to LPC just helping her source the gate. 2931, oh, there it is. So we want an accordion coming this way, not some dungeon gate coming down that way. 2931, Glenda Street. That's not a very good picture. As you can see from the resolution, and it's a major alteration to a very, very nice corner building. And whilst the applicant wasn't seeking to overdevelop this site, we do feel that it's the design we didn't feel particularly fit within the district, particularly this glass, this massive amount of glass storefront. So you can see the resolution is quite detailed. But
Where's the humongous gash?
Well, there's one here, and there's a smaller one there.
Okay. I'm just reading your, therefore be it resolved.
Yeah.
That's
there was a lot of,
right?
You know, hard work
No,
into this
you
by the
didn't?
architect, and they clearly put a lot of thought into it. However, we just think it's contextual. So you can see that we haven't, we're rejecting it unless they come back with a more contextual design, which frankly we don't expect. Yes, Bruce?
I want to, you made all the points. I just want to say that this building happens to be around the corner from where I live. It's an absolute, it's one of the last buildings on Leonard Street to be converted, and the architect gave an earnest job, but clearly had zero understanding of the historic district and what the history was, and this belongs in Seattle or Venice Beach in California. It absolutely doesn't belong here.
Yeah, so if there's no other questions or comments, the third resolution was a very simple ADA compliant ramp, which is being put
So we could
back
vote
of
on
the
all
building
three.
entrance using
Yeah, we'll
existing
fine.
entrance on Trinity Street.
So
So
Ron,
it's
do you want to take
You
the
wanna do all
first one
three?
roll call, the second two together?
No, we could do all three together. Why
If you
not?
want to do all three.
Okay.
It will be a little complicated, so let us know if you're voting yes or no for all three or an individual one.
So it's a subject.
Hold on.
The first one
If
is
we can just do the
subject
roll
to
call one
confirmation,
separate, it'd be better.
approval. The second is rejection, and the third is an
So, Roger, just to make this simpler and quicker, we're going to vote on the first one, roll call, and then combine the other two by hand.
Perfect, thank
So
you.
200 Church first?
200
Under
Church.
church.
Okay, for 200 Church Street, about the rolling gate,
So I'm gonna,
roll
On
call.
71?
No, the first one is 200 church on the
the
agenda.
first is 200. You want to do Leonard
Yeah.
Street first?
No, just 200.
No, that's a little, I'm sorry.
200.
200 Church Street. Amoruso,
Yes.
Arias, Burton,
Yes. It's in the back there.
Blank, Boyce,
Yes.
Byram,
Yes.
Chapman, Charkoudian,
Yes.
Chu,
Yes.
Cole, Kuchia,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Curtis, Ehrlich,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Frederickson, Friedman,
Yes.
Froman, Goldstein, Goodkind, Gupta,
Yes.
Jesse,
He's here.
he's here.
Yeah. Might have stepped out.
Hovitz,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Joyce,
Yes.
Cannell,
Yes.
Kettering,
Yes.
Kopel, Kopelman, Lemire,
Yes.
Lerner,
Yes.
Lewinson, Mahoney,
Yes.
Markel, McHugh, Meltzer,
Yes.
Myhock,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Notaro,
Yes.
Romero,
Yes.
Schneck, Starr,
Yes.
Sung,
Yes.
Tedesco?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Townley? Weinstock?
Yes.
Shi? Zelter?
Yes.
Right? And we'll do the other two together now?
Yes, so the second, the letter is the rejection and Broadway is an approval.
Broadway's approved, and the other one's a rejection. Okay. So,
All in favor?
As written, right?
That's
written.
Okay.
and I'm going to count these other ones.
Any opposed? Any refusal or abstention? Okay.
So we did have a report regarding Petzlip Park. There was a bit of a confusion by the applicant. It went to Alice's committee, and we considered that resolution and actually took up some of the points. There were a couple of questions that we had. I mean, those of us who have been on landmarks a long time have experienced how contractors don't know how to lay Belgian block. And so we reminded Parks that they really need to make sure that the contractor does know how to lay Belgian block, because over on Harrison and Greenwich, in Mark's neck of the woods, there's been some really terrible applications of that. And we also shared a concern of the Waterfront Committee about the Parks didn't really have a compelling comment about maintaining the park. They said they would do the best they could. And that was very encouraging, given we know how many parks that the best they do isn't very good. So, we wanted to sort of keep that on the top of our minds too. But otherwise, we of course support the decision of the Waterfront Committee.
Roger, did they say that they had any plans to have the old Seaport Alliance pitching in to the maintenance? Because there was some talk I heard about that, right, Paul? About the old Seaport Alliance pitching in?
They've attended meetings, but they haven't made any indication that they're going to be responsible.
That's, all right, but all right.
We'll have to take it up.
Okay.
There's a hand.
I just, in conjunction with what you just said, and I don't know what committee it would be, the community board does have to take up the issue of Belgian block and cobblestone. Because if you've ever tried to walk, bicycle, motorcycle, or drive on what has been laid in this community board, you've broken something, either an arm or a wheel or an axle. It's unbelievable. The work lasts 5 years and that's it.
Yeah.
Reggie?
Apologies for the elementary question, but could you explain for some of us what Belgian block is?
The cobblestone.
Oh, cobblestone. Okay, that makes more sense.
So
Now,
how do you-
when I heard Belgian block, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. We had this conversation some
Life, of course, has taken up this issue.
I'm sorry.
And does
Quality of
everyone
life.
know that someone who lives in Independence Plaza fell on the cobblestone and broke their hip?
Yes.
So this is really an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've taken it up before. We do have resolutions on this on record, specifically asking that they be refurbished, and it's ridiculous. I mean, the 100-year-old cobblestones look better than the 7-year-old ones.
Can you go back on this?
Somebody who knew how to spell it.
Hang on. They were more
So
carefully
I can
laid.
give a little bit of background, more background on the cobblestone streets. This is something that after the gentleman hurt himself by Independence Plaza, Diane reached out to the board, and we really wanted to let Diane Lapson. And so we really wanted to make sure that DOT knew the extent of the issue at hand. So I joined Cora and Jennifer from DOT, and we walked every single cobblestone street in the district. And we took extensive notes on the state of the street, because we have to try to put them all together so there's a capital item for the budget. They don't just redo one cobblestone street. They have to have enough to necessitate a capital item, because it's very extensive, expensive work with some specialization. So clearly the first go around, the work wasn't done properly, and so we want to make sure that it's redone, and then the community board exercises extreme oversight over the workmanship. So before whatever contractors period of limitations ends, we can make sure that the DOT is calling them back to make fixes if necessary.
I mean, one of the things also that we discussed is the fact that whoever did it last time obviously didn't do the job properly, and maybe they should refund some of the money for the job that they did.
We just merely said, find out who did Harrison Street and certainly don't use that. Laura, please.
Yeah.
So one thing that this committee could do is find the best cobblestones in the district that we like. And use that as an example, and tell the Parks Department you want them to match that. Because in construction, that's really how it's done. Is the contractor's supposed to do a mock-up for the architect, or the landscape architect to approve, but there's no reason why the community, since we're so invested in this, that we can turn ourselves into the process. Like
Subsurface conditions on the streets
as far as I have seen, there is no well-maintained
Some look like the surface of the road, you can place blocks all day long, but you're never
or a business improvement
St.
district,
John's Lane.
or some other stewardship beyond the Parks Department. So my recommendation is either the Alliance continues its boundaries, or we get diversions on Exlib and Front Street and those, whatever Water Street to, form some kind of group. It's not going to be that expensive to maintain this. I can help put something together. And, I think it deserves to be.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
We'll have this conversation. I think Lucian has done a lot of work that you probably haven't seen. I'll get to you. With Pat, hang on for a second. No. But I want everyone to realize there's also some limitations. A full street restoration is a good project and a valuable one. What's been happening is these piecemeal repairs. And if the substreet is not good, no matter how many cobblestones they put on it, it's become a problem. So we brought this to their attention.
It's on our capital budget needs as well.
Yeah, it's in the capital budget needs. Thank you.
That is why Greenwich Street, parts of Greenwich Street, the street there is no street.
Right.
It's not a street anymore. I'm not exaggerating.
Right.
Oh, I know.
No, it's all.
I live down Beach Street, and that's fine compared to some of the others. I'll come back to you, but I want to do.
That was Beach is Star. You want to see an old street that actually is in good shape, go to Vestry Street between Greenwich and Hudson. That's like a 100-year-old street, and it's actually not in bad shape. So that's just an example of maybe what you want to look at. Did you get any solution from DOT? Because, at the last minute, a quick fix can be, let's just pave over everything, it's good. Did you get any sense of them that they're thinking that, or are they really committed to repairing the house?
There are some streets where putting asphalt over the street is definitely what they would consider a temporary fix, and we pushed for that in places where there's a serious pedestrian crossing concern, but they don't even use that in all situations where the street, there has to be special conditions where they'll do that to a street, so.
They're kind of committed, you think, to fixing up?
Yeah, so they know that Harrison Street is a huge concern for the district, especially since there's a high likelihood of more accidents.
Last question, Laura.
You can also get the granite pavers to be smoother, so that they're easier to walk on, and they still have more historic character and texture and scale than asphalt would. So there's all sorts of things, which I'm happy to sit down with you guys and.
Well, it's a little quality of life, so let's take it up there. And if we need to focus on that, that's fine. Make a case for it. But let's follow up on whatever we propose. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. Licensing. This will be fun. Jeff.
Before you start, tell me what you're taking together. Please.
Well, I will go by
District?
geographic, like that's the way you like it.
Fantastic.
Okay. Licensing. Most of these are fairly straightforward. Excuse me. 89 South, which is Seaport, which is in the Seaport. It's a farm and table restaurant on the first floor. It overlooks. It has 37,542 square feet with an interior of about 6,000. Everything else is out of that, so it overlooks to the north and to the east. We were 8-1 in favor of that, one abstention. It's the applicant's own, or are running several other places in the Seaport of Eagle property. Should we take a vote on okay?
Yeah. Is this how it goes?
They all have it.
Yeah, that's,
Seaport.
yeah, not all of them though. David Chang won't be, George won't be.
He's renting from them.
But he applies, they apply for the license, for the liquor
I've
license.
seen that.
Yeah.
But they did that with Fulton Street. But
Oh,
then
yeah, I
they
know,
knocked them
I
out.
know. I'm surprised they left Cobble out of their, I mean, they're the landlord, but they're not running it. Which explains why it's the only place where you can buy something reasonably priced.
That's their problem, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I
If it
know.
fails, it fails, and they get somebody else.
Of all these outdoor music venues, you know how much time we devoted about that concert series and all the concerns that I continue to get about the noise and volume. And now we're approving one after the other of additional places. And I've also heard from other groups that are in that area that say that it interferes with their programming, all this noise, that they can't do anything. So I really just hope and think
Talking about the
your committee
outdoor spaces
should
that they're doing music
assess
in.
it with all that in mind.
Well,
We haven't had any complaints from the roofs.
What we've done with all sorts of places, not just the Seaport, is get them to sign that it will be background music only. And we're defining background music as if it's heard outside or by neighbors, it's not background music. That's part of the license. Now, what I think possibly Liz said at the last meeting, the music, there was one restaurant, the music, the loudness, the problem was when you eat there. Was that you, Liz, who said that? Maybe it was Megan, I'm not sure.
But none of these are outdoor.
No, they say.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
They both say that they have outdoor areas that the music will flow in.
I mean, it is a problem. We're trying to do the best we can with that by defining it as background music. We're also asking them to come back sometimes 6 months, sometimes 12 months to review it.
And maybe there just should be a limit on how many outdoor music venues we have in a small 3-block area.
Everybody has outdoor music.
Yeah,
It's
but
gonna be
he's
more.
doing liquor licensing, not the use of the venue. It's not their committee.
It's licensing.
It's liquor
89
license.
South, well, it's part of the Seaport, the main building.
What would, you know what, it's your job to
John Street.
Is that Fulton? Is that one of the Fulton?
I think it's Pier 17.
It is Pier 17. They own the north.
Yeah, it's one of the establishments in the
Jeff?
interior.
And you're right, Joe, now that I remember what this location is, when you're actually there, it's very loud. When you leave the building,
Wow.
So everybody.
Pier 17,
Yeah, it's one of the interior
Well,
restaurants.
we haven't, no complaints have come in
But the ones
so
that,
far.
Hallie,
We did.
Well, yeah.
from who? Not about the roof,
We had light complaints. About Pier 17.
about lights. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Some people didn't like the lights. That was Margaret Chin in the original ULURP. That's how that got through.
We also limited them to 9 p.m.
Right, but you don't hear the concerts either. And they're using all those speakers in the other locations too.
Yeah.
I think that the noise level will never rise above the FDR. For the under FDR, outcropping
Well, that's the, we haven't said that yet, but.
Okay.
my mistake, but I wanted to just raise the question of when you're reviewing the permits and the licenses, for the space underneath the FDR, we're about to face this, that this was up in our committee, the question was called, and Alice raised it pretty strongly, is that what are we programming that space underneath the FDR Drive is a valuable potential community resource. It's covered by the overhead drive, and so therefore it can be exercised. It can be, even when it's raining, it can be outside.
Tom, that's going to be in our resolution.
Do you want to have you want to hold a question?
Call the question.
Yeah.
This is a debate.
That comes up.
No, I just wanted to.
No debating.
So let's call
It wasn't debating.
all in favor.
You want to answer. All in favor? Any opposed?
This is 89.
89 south.
So this is opposition. So
1, 2, 3, 4.
Any refusals? That's a refusal, Tom?
And abstention.
Abstain. One abstention. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Next, Tribeca.
You want to combine some of these if they're not controversial?
The first one is an outdoor cafe, and we're giving approval sooner than we normally would because the woman who's running it is the wife or partner of the old Max restaurant around the corner on Wayne. And this is a place that's had a cafe for a couple of years. 81 Warren is a
Liquor bill.
On Warren Street, and 174 Hudson. It's a family and children-oriented.
The wonders.
It's a club. The idea is for parents, place for parents to take the children. The parents go to the center area where there's a bar and food. Parents on the committee seem to think this is a good idea, but it's a place where they can talk about various things that they don't get to talk about at the day schools and this and that. The hours are up to 10
It's the school bus.
Mark brought up the parking as well. You want to speak on that, Mark?
That's
What
what kids
happened
learn in
with
family
the
life.
misrepresentation of the 500-foot rule hearing on this one? Is this the one you had there?
Was that this one? Yeah. If you read the third whereas, what I found online at the SLA Lamp site, there were actually more than, there were like 6, I think. And they had represented that there aren't 3 or more, but in fact, we sent a letter to their attorney. What he wrote back is that 4 of the ones on the SLA site no longer have licenses, and I checked that he's accurate on that. So I wrote in just basically pointing that out and asking the SLA to update it because there may be, if they're counting old licenses that don't exist, maybe they're not counting new licenses that do.
Did he
I don't
say-
know of any, you didn't know of any.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
it could still be on the books. We're able to confirm whether they're on the books or they're just not being used.
No, the licenses are been, even on the SLA site, they are, on the SLA site, those 4 licenses are extinct.
Okay.
The mapping site has not caught up with its own.
Okay.
All right, so I call questions.
Yeah, and if there's no more questions.
The other issue, Anthony, was that this is like a block and a half from the Holland Tunnel entrance on Hudson Street. And, anyone who has kids, drop them off in front of the building. So there's
They
no
won't be
way
in
to-
business
there's
for
no
long.
way to enforce it, but we asked them to drop off to tell their clients.
They won't be in
all this.
business very long.
So it's going to be a problem there with queuing.
Well,
They'll have to
find that out.
All right, so we're going to take all 3.
Yes.
Okay, so they need to hold their hands up so I can speak.
All right, all in favor for all 3 in Tribeca?
Okay.
Any opposed? Any refusal or abstention?
Abstain on
You
174
abstain
Hudson.
on which one?
174 Hudson.
Abstains on
134.
174 Hudson.
Okay, let's move on. Financial district.
All right, this is actually the situation of another financial. on, Tom, I think we're talking about 84 South Street, which was presented to us. It's an outdoor structure, a new structure under the FDR. They said it used to be a semi-outdoor covered structure. I don't know for sure. They also said in their questionnaire, it's in the resolution, they will not require any other permits to operate at this location. Now, since then, I talked to Alice, Paul possibly, that this came up in your committee,
Design.
and they may not have the permits. Is that what I
We
understand?
need approval from the Public Design Commission.
Right.
So that's the last item on today's
Yep.
agenda. And that, we're going to address some of your concerns in our.
Yeah, they're two separate issues.
Yeah.
Right,
Discuss that in our committee.
exactly.
Well, should we hold off on this?
Oh,
I mean, we approved it, but we didn't know, your agenda simply said there was a concession stand, and this is not a concession stand, so there was no connection between our committees on this one.
You know, we spoke about this today in the office, and the feeling was that we'll have a debate on your resolution about the Public Design Commission, but this is separate in terms of a liquor license. But we should put an amendment in here that it will also be subject to whatever comes out of that decision.
All right, well,
Is that a friendly amendment?
what
Yeah.
happens at the SLA, we had this with town stages, and I know CB3 has issues, they give licenses when permits haven't been given by DOB or this or that, saying the license is subject to you getting this permit.
But there is no permit to be issued here.
Well, okay, the SLA then gives the license, and I know it's CB3, they're having problems, it's been 2 years.
Our focus should be, the big issue here is that this may obstruct a view corridor on John Street. And that, if you want to call that out in a friendly amendment, if there was that would be a condition that it does not obstruct the view corridor.
Right.
I'm going to put it in the SLA.
But
It does obstruct the view corridor.
that's what I'm saying. That we will oppose this, given the fact that it does. All right, so, you know, you always have contingencies. That should be a contingency here. We do not want that view corridor blocked.
Okay.
So how are we
That would be
wording
fine.
the friendly amendment?
I'm not sure. the
Shouldn't
state
that
would
be in
prefer to listen to
waterfront resolution, though?
No, because he's still applying for a liquor license.
How they view things. So either maybe we should reject their liquor, the liquor license until this is addressed.
That's one option. My fear is that the SLA will grant this anyway. So let's hold on the books and saying this is a condition of our approval. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Also, we used to, this is a little bit unusual situation, but we never used to consider the license if they didn't have a C of O. So if they didn't have a C of O presented to us, we would say, come back.
Well, that's what's happening in CB3. People that don't have a C of O get a license with the provision that they get it. I'm sorry, with the provision that they get a C of O.
That's as per the SLA, but not as per the CB, right?
You know,
That's as per the SLA.
it's a valid question, Mark, but I think our experience with Howard Hughes, they're going to get a C of O. They have deep pockets here.
Yeah, this is from-
And they've been operating this for a couple of years, right?
Well, no, this is a new.
No, they're not.
They have a structure there already, right?
No. The structure's bathrooms, Anthony.
Okay.
I think we
It's
should note-
parks.
Can we note that, though?
They're incorporating an existing structure.
Right.
and expanding.
Yeah, and it's parks. It's parks design.
Well, you have to speak up.
Spent a fair amount of time on this, and we've all been talking about it. What's there now, which was really never presented very clearly in any of these meetings, is about a few hundred square foot storage building that has 2 bathrooms and a small pop-up shop
Right.
sold ice cream.
Right.
This has absolutely nothing to do with this building, except that it is attached at the roof level, as you can see, with a piece of structure that hangs over that very building I'm referring to on the left. You know, the drawings, as you can see, are rather
difficult to read, you don't even see the FDR in this drawing. But anyway, so what's really being presented is a new, well, according to your,
Yeah, that's what they
it's
told
over
us, it's a new
3,000
structure.
square foot structure. That's entirely new.
Okay.
And I just make sure that everyone understands that.
All right, so that's what's being presented to us.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all clear on that.
Laura?
Yeah.
I don't understand why the new building is coming to us through the licensing committee, when it should be like through the land use zoning or something. It's a new, like where are we talking about the liquor license, when we don't want to building there?
Because
I'm sorry, you have to speak up a little bit more, Laura.
I said, I don't understand why new building is coming through the licensing committee, just because there's a new building that wants to come out.
Separate the two of them. They're coming here for a liquor license. The waterfront committee will talk about the building itself. By the way, this has been presented to this board on at least 2 occasions.
She's saying it's back, that's all. So maybe we put in an amendment in our.
That it depends on the approvals.
You know, that this
That's
is,
fine.
that this is a license given without the construction of a building.
Just as we put in other contingencies.
But why?
Yeah.
No CMO, right?
So the question becomes, is if we, what Anthony's has said, and we've always said, is if we don't give them a license, will the SLA give them a license, Jeff?
Yes.
Without us, any stipulations or anything?
Yeah, probably. We don't know that for a fact, but high probability.
I think it's likely, that's why, but they also might listen if we want to hold off a month until,
Well, we need to clearly say that our approval is purely contingent on the design and the,
Pending approval.
and it has to come back to us then.
Pending approval
That's all.
of the design.
All right?
Pending approval.
I think we have some wording for that, but
But Anthony, to your point about the view corridor, like really we should be seeing this plan showing where it is in relationship to that corridor.
and that will be the next resolution.
Laura, the problem is, there are 8 different agencies for
Right.
everything. The SLA is only going to listen to certain things, that's why
But we're
they're
gonna
going
put
for
it in.
liquor.
Yes.
We're gonna have that friendly.
This is really,
Okay.
I think, more
Yes.
to,
We'll write
So
it.
ask him what the word.
So let's get the word.
You've been here that long?
Basta, whoa. Guys, if we need to move forward, so
Yeah.
let's just work on the friendly amendment. Let's work on the wording that works for everybody, so we can call it. I'm ready, hit me.
CB1 urges that the proposed restaurant structure not obstruct the important John Street / Burley Slip view corridors in East River and historic vessels.
Perfect, hand it over.
Beautiful.
can we add something as,
I can read your notes,
Wait,
Well, I'm going to need this when I give my report.
so hand it to me
So
after.
I'll give it all to you.
but wait,
Sounds
come
good.
on, Jeff.
Paul, is there something that we can refer to? The view corridors were stated in some earlier.
I do have an
Legislation.
early reference, whereas earlier proposals from the city for the proposed development of pavilions under the FDR called for the view corridors along South Street to be unobstructed.
All right, can we add that to our resolution?
So
Yep.
we'll add them to both the resolutions.
Good.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. So with those amendments,
I'm sorry, just one question on this, 2 questions. One is, so that it's.
1 or 2?
One is.
No, 1.
It is inaccurate that the applicant has stated on the question they will not require any other permits. In fact, they did require another permit, but didn't tell you that.
Well, that's, okay.
Okay.
I'm not clear, is that a permit or?
No, it's not a permit.
That's approval, I don't know what your language is.
When you go to the Public Design Commission, you get their approval. There is not a physical permit or a registered permit.
It's an approval.
And the other thing was that the applicant will employ a doorman. I was curious because this has been reported to be a completely open pavilion and it has no enclosure except in the winter, it's winterized with some sort of fabric. So we'll use the doorman just anyway, like a doorman that's just hanging outside.
They said they would do it. Because there's liquor, that's, it's a way of keeping people from, congregating out.
Right.
We could also add, Paul, to your point, would not require any permit to operate at this location. However, they have not received approval
From the Public Design Commission.
from the public design.
Absolutely. Cool.
Okay, let's go.
All right, so with those amendments, all in favor? Any opposed? Refusal, abstention.
Whoa,
Wait a minute.
Hold your hands up, please.
Refusal? Not abstention, refusal. Okay,
Abstain.
abstain. Thank you.
And Reggie.
Abstain?
I'm sorry, did a hand go up over here?
You abstaining?
Abstain? Mark, you were abstaining?
Yes.
Right.
So we have 2 abstentions, 2 recusals, and no oppositions, right?
Thank you.
Thank you,
I didn't anything but yell. Okay, Battery Park City.
No, transport.
Oh, yeah.
I'm happy to,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I misread it. Reggie, come on.
You're up.
I'll be quick.
You're up, my friend.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Hi, everyone. No resolutions, thank God, just resolutions tonight, or just reports today. Let me just start off by saying we unfortunately had a few quorum issues over the past month or two. It's a new committee getting up and running. There's some conflicts with committee dates and just the members generally couldn't come due to long-standing vacation. So first, a big thank you to Anthony for having an influx next month's members. So we'll be good to go over quorum. And I do want to first want to thank Erica for being co-chair for the start of the committee. We're really happy that our business is taking off. When Anthony and I talked about Devin being co-chair, I said, well, we like Devin. Why would we want to put him? But thank you, Devin, for taking
Bravo.
up this cause. So we have 3 brief reports. The first was Pace University. We had the Assistant Vice President for Government Affairs and actually some students from Pace University come to the meeting to discuss 2 items. The first was a request from Pace to discuss signage, specifically at the Brooklyn Bridge City Hall station as well as the Fulton Street station. They realized that renaming the Brooklyn Bridge City Hall subway station is likely not going to fly with this board, and they were probably right about that, but they did have a request that there actually be an increase in signage within the station itself, and alternatively for us to consider the Fulton Street station as a possible joint name for Fulton Street / Pace University. We expressed our initial concern Fulton Street, well, Brooklyn Bridge City Hall was never going to happen, you all know that, but Fulton Street, given that it competes with the Seaport, with the World Trade Center, a whole host of areas, so we kind of understood that, but we generally did say we would be supportive of increasing signage within the station itself to make sure people can find out where Pace University is. The second item is regarding Spruce Street safety. So on Spruce Street, specifically between Nassau and Gold Street, it's an interesting area because it's a pretty narrow street, but you have New York Presbyterian, you have the Spruce Street School, and you have Pace University. And there's a lot of pedestrian traffic going in and out between the streets. So there was a request for a speed hump for that area. And the students in the school actually spent a lot of time talking about this with DOT and with local elected officials before coming to us. The issue with the speed hump is, even though it would be a good idea, there are ambulances that need to go for the speed hump. And I, for one, if I'm in the back of an ambulance, do not want to be in the ambulance when it goes over a speed hump. So one of the alternatives that they had proposed, which actually DOT was interested in and asked for CB1 Transportation Committee to provide a resolution on, is there was an alternative. It's a speed strip, if you will, where it's wide enough for cars to actually go over it to slow them down, but for ambulances, since their axles are much wider, they could actually go over it without actually having that hump, if you will. So it's an interesting proposal and something that will officially go on at the next transportation committee meeting. All right, next. Oh,
There's the fire truck there,
Sorry,
too.
I have no idea if that
Yeah, please go for
me complaining about it all the time, but maybe. But this is specifically for Spruce or Beekman as well?
Spruce Street specifically.
Okay, yeah, it's.
Probably the same for Beekman, and you could probably make an argument on Bolton as
I'd
well.
love to talk about this offline.
Yeah, no, I'm happy you brought it up because it leads into another item on the agenda. So the next item is regarding proposed legislation on e-bikes and e-scooters. So just to give everyone an understanding of what the heck is going on with the City Council and the Mayor, the City Council is going to be having a hearing on a number of bills related to e-bikes and e-scooters. So just a quick, very brief overview of what the heck these bills do. We have Intro 1250. It's titled Operation of Certain Electric Scooters. But basically, this bill allows electric scooters to be operated in the city as long as they're under 15 miles an hour. So that's that. Then operation of certain electric bicycles. So it allows e-bikes to be used in the city as long as they do not exceed 20 miles an hour. And just a point of clarity, there's pedal assist and then there are e-bikes. And there's a difference between the two, but this specifically would allow e-bikes to be used as long as they remain under 20 miles an hour. We have 1264, which is again operation of certain electric bicycles. Next one. Shared electric scooters. So this is a bill that was proposed by a number of council members near the area where the L train was supposed to be shut down. It won't be, but it allows for a pilot for electric scooters to be used within that immediate area to allow for those who don't have access to the train during the shutdown to use scooters as an alternative. And then the next one is 1265, which is a pilot program that would help those who have an electric scooter to be able to convert to pedal assist and to help those individuals who may not be able to afford it actually afford it. So all in all, that's the universe of the legislation that we're talking about here. There are a number of reasons why council members and the mayor and different other entities have opined on this. The main points for these bills were, one, increasing the diversity of transportation options, and two, ensuring that there's equity amongst this world of bicycles and scooters, especially for those who may not be as mobile. However, there are quite a lot of cons, and as somebody who's been hit by delivery bikes before, I can tell you firsthand, there are a lot of cons. A number of the concerns that were raised were greenways, especially in parks, which are already congested as is. Safety, the lack of clarity on the rules. One of the things with the legislation is that it calls on DOT to promulgate a bunch of rules. However, none of the rules are actually specified before the bill gets passed. It's one of these things with city council bills where the city council will pass something, the agencies make up rules, but then we don't see how they actually interact with one another. There's also discussion of possibly doing licensing on the state level as well. All this is saying there's quite a lot of questions or quite a lot of ambiguities. And again, since we didn't have a robust membership at the meeting, we couldn't really come to a resolution on it, but we will be discussing it in full at the next transportation. Yes, we'll start this way.
Yeah, Bob and I co-authored a resolution, just a draft resolution to touch on some of those subjects. We're going to be able to deal with that next month in a full resolution, yeah. So I don't think this addresses enough on enforcement of bad behavior and then licensing of any vehicle. What's a vehicle? I mean, it has a motor. For commercial uses here. So.
Agreed on all fronts. And one of the dilemmas with city council bills is that it doesn't necessarily take a look at things holistically. The word enforcement is rarely used in these bills, and that is, of course, as a board, our biggest gripe, not just on DOT or NYP, but a whole host of measures.
Well, quality of life has taken this topic up a lot, and enforcement is the problem. Tonight coming here, there was a guy on an e-bike that was on the sidewalk, and that's always one of the big problems. So whatever you write, please include, once again, we've discussed with DOT many times, and they keep telling us, oh, whenever anyone gets a bike, they're never on the sidewalk, we don't see them. They don't enforce it. So it's one of the issues, when you motorize something and you let it be on the, it's even more.
And if it had a license plate.
Yeah, if it had a license.
Well, that's an issue that we'll take up because this is the Wild West. Some things make sense and other things are unregulated.
Right.
So we have to look at that. The state, motor vehicles haven't weighed in as to whether or not either one is licensed or insurance.
Well, the state is legal already.
No, your 6-year-old.
Well, it's not really
20
clear.
miles an hour.
That's a definition. It's not a regulation yet.
Rich, again, apologies if I missed.
Sure.
You may be aware that HRPT and HRPT Advisory has drafted a resolution calling for the exclusion of any motorized device from the greenways and the bikeways.
Yeah.
Do we know if BPCA is taking similar action to submit?
Oh, that's a good question.
I was going to turn to Tammy.
Yeah, we have discussed it. We were waiting to see in committee to do a resolution with BPCA because in the bicycle working group, discussions were had about where stations are and moving them specifically where they would be allowed on the greenway but not allowed on the Esplanade at all.
Well, we
Streets and Greenway only. Electric bike.
So that's just somewhat counter to the position of HRPT, just.
Because HRPT is saying nowhere in the park.
No greenway, no bikeway.
Yeah. No way.
Are they gonna follow the same rules as far as motorcycles, that they have to go in the direction of traffic?
Yes.
God bless.
We would have to deputize the entire citizens of New York to
Yeah.
enforce that.
Well,
So, but it is on the books.
Yeah, and again, unfortunately, I think too often with something of an issue like this that's as politically and emotionally charged as it is that we have a tendency to cascade one group or another as being
Right.
for it or against it. All in all, I think for everyone who's here who's ever used a bicycle, I'm looking at my neighbors here, you all are pretty responsible people, you know, go the right way, be in the lane, don't stay on the sidewalk. And unfortunately, it's the minority of bicycle users who, when they do silly things like go the wrong way or be on the sidewalk, unfortunately cascade something on the rest of those who use it.
More than a minority.
There's,
Well,
The majority of the people who we have problems with are delivery people.
Yep.
And
Look,
they are the
I'm
people-
talking about, you're right, I hear that, I'm just talking about this room in terms of normal average New Yorker who's using it, right? In terms of, so.
well, you have tourists who are using it too.
Exactly.
I mean-
So all in all, this goes at the heart of what we've all been talking about for years on this issue, before I was joined the community board. Enforcement,
A lot of tourists.
education, but especially enforcement. Yeah.
But delivery people, the main people who want the e-bikes and the motorized bikes are delivery people, and they are the worst culprits of going the wrong way, riding on the sidewalk, not obeying the laws,
But again, I mean, if we do ourselves a disservice when we cascade all delivery people, or
Not saying
most
all.
delivery people
I'm not
is
saying
doing
all.
that. Because
I'm not saying
I think, for example, Betty, who was at the committee meeting and talked about those who have limited means, love the opportunity to have an e-bike that goes only up to 20 miles an hour. Because it allows them to experience things in the city that others may not be
but
able
they'll
to.
probably obey the laws.
It's all to say, it's a report, thankfully, we'll discuss it next
Stay
month.
tuned, there's going to be more work to be done on this in both committees.
Yeah.
Thanks, Reggie.
I know I have like 90 seconds left, so really quick. John and Nassau Street, there was a request for a stop sign, an additional stop sign, excuse me, at this specific, a stop sign at this location. One of the things we did ask DOT to do, and we're going to ask Ed to do this the next time it comes around next month, is a 101 on what actually goes into requesting a stop sign. We did a cursory look at other community boards throughout the city, and everyone wants a stop sign. I think we all would love a four-way stop sign next to our homes. So we asked a bit more about the process. Ed kindly sent over this massive 50 megabyte file of dozens of pages of all the regulations and all the studies that actually go into figuring out whether or not a stop sign should go into there. It's a little bit more complicated than I thought it was. But anywho, we did note that the first stop or the first stop that will be processed to DOT is to actually have a resolution on it. So it's something that, again, this specific, this location will discuss it again next month. There is a stop sign on Nassau Street, facing John. Right, and this is a request to be a four-way stop.
I still have all my tests.
That was totally blocking.
Yeah, and that was.
And I was just trying to cross the street and I had to,
On the corner of Nassau, there's specifically, because it's the Fed area, especially there might be deliveries, it actually blocks the stop sign. Sorry, it's not a four-way, it's a two-way. I call it a four-way because it's intersection. It's to have another crossing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks you,
And then
Reggie.
the last item is street co-naming, everyone's favorite topic. So Dana tells me we have more than 5 or more than 7 individuals who have expressed interest. According to the bylaws, just a reminder, we can only have a working group that's up to the limit of the membership. So we're going to try to do 2 things, just especially have diversity of opinion on this. So we're not going to have everybody who agrees with street co-namings or doesn't like street co-namings. You are really going to strive to have a diversity of opinion. You'll be notified in the next few days if you will be invited to be on, or we can accommodate you on, and then we'll begin the working group meetings in the next week or so, and we'll work around everyone's calendar. Thank you.
Bravo, thank you. Tammy.
Okay, we have one resolution, and if anybody has ever been in Battery Park City, one of the things that makes it so unique is Battery Park City Authority. But what also makes it a challenge is the average file a 311 complaint. There are some streets that you can file a 311 complaint and it goes nowhere because they say, oh, that street lamp is owned by Battery Park City Authority. And so the conversation ends right there. There's limited amounts of searchable data, so when we're looking to get, you can file a noise complaint about the ferries, but you can't file a noise complaint in the middle of Rockefeller Park. So, what we're looking for through the 311 integration is to streamline the system. So, anybody who calls 311, the complaints are taken, received, and logged, and if it belongs to something that is in the purview of Battery Park City Authority, the 311 system will be able to forward that request to the Battery Park City Authority. Instead of telling the caller or logger, so sorry if you don't take this, please call Battery Park City Authority. Because that doesn't seem actually rather friendly or intuitive in any manner. Because the average resident doesn't know what streets the Battery Park City Authority still owns and what streets are city. That's a really pretty basic resolution.
I think I read it, it's well done, it's well taken, but you're right, 311 will take the call and log it. That's what they'll do. That's just about
They
it.
don't take all.
No, what I'm saying is it's such an overwhelmed system. It essentially doesn't work. That's all I'm saying.
So we're hoping to improve the
Building it some more.
Yeah. Exactly.
They don't have enough requests.
Right.
All right.
Sure, we'll do that.
I got a big crew.
You know, Quality of Life again has been working on 311, and it is an issue that there are certain locations that they don't recognize, and we have been working with them over the last couple of years to try to get that improved also. So I think we have a resolution that we wrote. I can't remember.
That was
Just
a
gonna
state
look for
land.
it and see if we
That's
can-
why.
Well,
They figure it's not their auspices because they're municipal. Yeah,
Battery
yeah,
Park City
yeah.
and those similar situations. Because the answer is not only about specific areas, it's about just a seamless
All right,
integration
so
of data.
let's go.
It's like someone will call and say there's, like on the West Side Highway, there's a problem. They don't recognize
Right.
it. So,
All right, but this can't hurt.
Well, it's a major project, so if you have no other questions, we
I
will call
call
question.
Call it.
All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Refusal or abstention? Thank you.
Fantastic. So the other thing is 225 Liberty, I'm sure everybody knows that says closed. So Brookfield is supposed to come and discuss their plans for 225 Liberty because there's been a significant amount of change to the public accessibility of both the lobbies of the little gatehouses that were there. And their plans for what they're looking to put in to 225 Liberty. They did not show, the Battery Park City Authority gave a brief update, but more information will come next month.
What everybody, I'm sorry, but everyone doesn't know it. What
Saks Fifth Avenue closed.
Right, okay.
So they're looking, they don't have a confirmation, but they're gonna come and present what they're, potentially looking to put in there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
The fantastic user park survey is done for the Battery Park City. There are copies of this in the office if you'd like to see it. It was literally a survey done for the parks in Battery Park City on usage. Turns out not only the locals love it there. I don't think any of us have known that. And Ally Universal has their special patrol officers in place. So if you are coming to Battery Park City, you could actually be ticketed for having a dog off the leash, smoking in the park, breaking any of the park rules. So it's just a heads up to know that they are rolling through that slowly.
So, just an observation, I don't know if you received any feedback. Other than the last few days, the weather's been pretty mild and there's been a fair amount of activity at the fields.
Yeah.
It seems as though, one, Allied Universal, and two, the field staff, I don't know if they're reduced hours during this time of year, but
They are.
sort of prime hours of 10 to 3. I haven't seen a lot of the resources there.
I think Nick Russell will help.
We are having that discussion as well. I think they'll follow up officially from the league if that's what you're saying, because we had this discussion about they downsize in the winter time, and on nice days in the winter, there's a struggle because you can't find anything.
not using it this time of year, this is just more personal observation, but I have seen a number of families attempting to get balls or cones or other things from the office, which does store those items, and I hadn't been able to.
The office is supposed to still be manned, the outline pass or supposed to be used, but I'll certainly bring it back and say something, because the office is supposed to be there. And I think that's it for right now. We have some fun stuff coming up, so stay tuned.
Bravo, thank you. Pat and Mark.
Pass that down for Lucian for the office, please.
Thank you. Hey,
Good job.
10 minutes.
Anyone owes me money for the party?
Yeah, thank you for doing that. You and Tammy
And
and
Francis,
Francis, thank you so much.
cash or check?
Please change their mind if they want to come to the party. It's not too late. It's money. Okay, so.
But you have to email us so we have enough food.
Yeah, we have to order more food anyway, because a few people gave us.
Fantastic, I love that.
All right. I'll go first and then Mark will tell you about it. So this program that MTA started, which is really good, hopefully it will work out, where there's one manager for many stations. So we had our manager from Team 11, who manages 18 stations in our community below Canal Street, come introduce himself, tell us what he does. We also had the two police officers that work in our area come and introduce themselves and talk about what they do. And you can find, his name is Jimmy, is it
Lamort.
Lamort?
Yeah.
Lamort. You can find his information on placards in the subway. He has people who work on the platforms who help you find your way, wayfinders. And he's just doing, he's doing what he can to try to improve the quality in the stations. We talked about rats, we talked about garbage, we talked about homeless people, all the topics like quality of life, better life. And he's going to, you can send him an email, you can contact the people who work in the station.
They turn the heat
and
on.
let them know if there's a problem. We talked about needs and water, all of the general problems. So that's what he's there to handle. He'll send out a maintenance crew
And turn the
and
air
try to get
off.
the problem resolved. Or he'll call if there are homeless people on the subway, in the station, or on the train. He'll send out a call to the police officers and try to get them removed from the car.
So, there's this art with eyes all over the ACE line. There's also a big kind of short, mosaic in a strange place. It's so dusty, you can't see it anymore. Is that the kind of thing you can ask?
I don't think you could. It's maintenance. It's maintenance. So I think we could ask him to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to take down a note, Joe?
I can work with you. We can figure exactly where that is and let you know.
Lucian an email and let him know the exact location. Tammy, did you anything?
Yeah, I just wondered, is the conversation of the renaming of the MTA station part, where's that? There was an article recently about Pace looking to rename.
I don't think that's something that would be under.
No, that goes to a whole other area. They reported on that.
He's talked about it, yeah.
So he's not involved in that?
No.
That goes directly through transportation? Just checking.
Yeah, he's maintenance and customer service. I think that.
They have a whole program for naming.
All right, so that's basically, just look for signs, Team 11, in the subways. If you have a problem, shoot him an email.
Thank you.
Mark?
If some of you recall, in June, we passed a resolution with regards to film permits and permitting on streets that have alternate side street parking. So we finally got a response from Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment 7 months later. But it's like kind of a good news, bad news story. Every time I see a production company or someone gives me a call in the neighborhood that there's a production going on, I'll go and talk to the location manager for each production company. And the good news is that most of them are actually cooperating. They understand what's happening. They'll still work in progress, and they say, well, when we come back in the future, we won't take this alternate side street again. We'll park around the corner where it's commercial parking. Because what happens is, say you park there on a Monday, and say the next day, on Wednesday or Thursday and alternate side suspended, you might think you don't have to come back till Friday. They put the permit up after you park there, and then your car gets towed.
Yeah.
There's no cost for them to towing. It's moved to another location with a note put on it saying, don't tow this car, it's been relocated because of the film production. But who wants that hassle? The alternate side parking is basically for the residents or residents of New York City. So the production company is actually getting it, talking to each company, each location manager. It's a work in progress, and they're working with us. So that's the good news. Who doesn't seem to be getting it is a little bit is the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. They did send us a letter with a lot of bureaucratic speak in it. Things like we can't fulfill this because of a charter mandate. We can't give you a special set of rules.
For one area.
How are we going to balance the industry with the neighborhood? So what we decided to do is in March, we'll make if you recall, that resolution was kind of long. So I think they just misinterpreted it. And we'll come up with something more short and concise. And then we spoke about that in the committee to do that in March. And then maybe it's something that you can bring to the borough board as an issue as well. So it's really a simple thing. It takes like a few seconds. ABC production company comes and asks for a permit. It's on alternate side street. Hey guys, are you filming on that street? No. Can you use another street? Yes. Is that very difficult to implement? It doesn't sound like it.
Because we're sure it's happening all over the city.
It's all over the city. And I did speak to some, I won't say which community boards, but I did speak to some other community boards, and they have that, internal concern about, well, we don't want to rock the boat with the mayor's office.
That may be one, but there's others I will tell you that have a worse problem than we do.
Yeah.
You go up to Harlem, and they're mostly residential streets, and that's been discovered now as a location.
Because of the period.
You talk to Community Board 10 and 11, and they have horror stories.
So maybe it's something we can work with other community boards. But
All right, so let's do that resolution.
These guys, they work for us. They're paid by taxpayers.
You don't have to sell us.
Someone had a question?
Yeah, Mark, and I briefly mentioned this to you. The other thing that's happening beyond alternate side.
Hey, one conversation, gentlemen, take it in the back if you want. Andrew,
And a
speak up.
specific example is Northmore, Kingsbury, Hudson.
Right.
They're filming on Monday. They start trying to move cars out Saturday afternoon. So they're really trying to block off that one block in particular, 36 hours or more before they intend to use it. And there have been some confrontations I've observed.
There are rules about that, about when they're supposed to post and when they can actually move the car and actually put those cones up, and they inevitably violate those rules all the time. And I'll catch them on it. I'll call the production company.
They hire a company.
And the thing is, there's like one or two companies that are hired to put out these cones.
Right.
And they're very aggressive.
And enforce them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something that we're also
Perfect.
going to work on.
Thank you.
Good.
And the citizens act
We'll report.
in March was postponed.
If you have any filming and you want to call me to show up there, we'll
Raise your guy.
Okay.
You may be kidnapped one day.
Yeah.
Alice, thank
Yeah,
you.
look for me in a
You better get a carry
if you
permit.
see a craft service truck go really low,
You better get a carry
I just
permit.
want to say that whoever named this wedge made a very
Well,
unfortunate decision.
that's another one.
Realize.
That's another one.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was yours.
It would have been in this committee, but the committee had to inform us. So anyway,
Okay.
Happy New Year. So environmental protection, so we are, anxiously waiting to hear from the city on major issues that deal with resiliency and climate change. That specifically is the mayor's office of recovery and resiliency. In the meantime, we spent a great deal of time hearing from different and this particular one was terrific and
Did my wife all
unexpected.
the time. She says,
Called
"I'm
Trees
freezing."
New York. And this is a 40-year-old not-for-profit whose mission is to plant, preserve, and protect New York City's urban forests, which consists of all sorts of plantings. I think there's something like 5.2 million plantings, which they oversee and educate the public about. And the committee was provided details on many things that are happening in Lower Manhattan that are ways to deal with storm management, basic environmental improvement. This is bioswales, which are also called rain gardens, and tree guards, which is something that he wanted us to advocate for in, budget, in the upcoming budget reports, that we should include tree guards. And
so he went over in great detail a lot of these types of elements, which were very interesting and helpful and small, but kind of effective in ways that we could, approach having a better sort of environmental condition around the trees to allow them to perform their role as being environmentally friendly and helpful. He also went over tools that were available to us. Was a New York City tree map, which was fascinating, I thought, where every 10 years there's a census of every tree in New York taken and updated at that point. And so you can see your own block and how many trees you have, and if you don't have them or they're in bad condition or they need to be replaced, you can advocate for that through both his organization and the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. He also talked about a program called iTrees, which was a research group that looks to basically analyze different aspects of the trees, whether they're beneficial, what kinds of storm damage they have, when a storm happens, bird habitats, and all sorts of elements which are also available to the public to utilize. So that was basically it. It was kind of a summary of trees in New York, and I thought it was very helpful and interesting. And I don't know if anybody else from our committee has anything to add. I think that was maybe Wendy. And thanks for Wendy coming on board as our vice chair.
The only thing I'd add is that I'm sharing that it's always hard to find volunteer activities for school-age kids.
Yep.
And this is actually one organization that you could water trees in the summer, and he will help you organize it and get volunteer hours. And so I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and I just want to say, so tomorrow, so sometimes this committee will not meet necessarily during the month at an evening time. We've decided that we also will go to meetings that are given by the city council or other groups or agencies in the city to keep abreast of what's going on. And so tomorrow there's a meeting at the city council for an oversight on the East River Park resiliency plans, which we will report on and which in fact we will provide, I think, written testimony and the resolution that we put forth last month, so that we have a hand in the game there as well. So that's it for now, and I hope people will show up. Yes, Mark.
In regards to the trees, if my memory serves me correct, when someone wants to put in a request, a block association or even an individual that they want a tree on the block, that the landlord, the owner of the property can refuse it, and then that's it. Is that still the case?
That the owner of a property...
Like the building that it's in front of, where the place is requested, that if the landlord or the owner of the building doesn't want to have it there, that the city
Let
can't
me
do anything
defer
about
to
it?
Cora on that, because I know
Is that-
she's expert on it and has helped us get 2 trees
Is
in front
that
of our
still
building.
true? I just
Thank
remember
you,
this from
Cora.
years ago. Oh, okay.
Good,
So maybe we should request more trees.
thank
Will
you.
they plant trees in pits that exist that are empty?
Absolutely, yes.
Wow.
And I think that our website will include, right, Lucian, we can have identifying those 2 websites that might be helpful so that people know where to go to get the trees.
It's called iTree?
Yeah, iTree and Trees of New York. This one is
of
Trees of
New
New
York.
York. Trees New York. Trees New York.
Trees New York is the not-for-profit. One quick fact about them is that they're the only not-for-profit that can train New Yorkers to prune street trees. So you and the Parks Department will be able to maintain street trees. So that's an interesting thing that anybody can do.
I have my citizen
Anthony's-
pruner's license for the last 20 years, so if you need a tree pruned, call me up. I'm a
Call
licensed.
Anthony and he will prune your trees.
That goes under the things you didn't know about your chair.
Well, now you know.
Yeah, Wendy.
I think one important thing that we learned is that I think most of us knew that dog urine is bad for,
Oh.
but not everybody knows that any sort of dog waste is bad for trees. And that's one of the other reasons that he's really hoping that whenever possible you can put in the gates around the trees.
Tree guard.
That's another.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and then we could, he didn't advocate for anything, but there were very clear indications of things you guys would board to do to support conscientious, use of the area and the trees available to us.
Yeah, he asked us if we would add to the budget tree plantings as part of the, annual budget, which is something we could consider.
I recall from that meeting, though, that one important point is that the pits are parks and city property and not the buildings. But buildings are often required as part of their development. There's some requirement for them to contribute to planting of trees. It's like 2,000 pits or something like that, and that they have to pay for it, but it's not theirs, they don't control it, and they can't stop someone from pruning the tree if they're duly authorized, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Once it's not theirs.
Bravo, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick.
Bob Rick's still there?
Oh, Manny, that's right, I'm sorry.
Hi everyone, got 2 items, no resolutions. First item, 250 Water Street, the brownfield cleanup. Sorry?
I apologize, the crosswalk.
Keep going, he's out of order.
Alright.
Sorry.
Behave yourself.
That the Howard Hughes Corporation purchased the 250 Water Street land, which is bounded by Exlip and Beacon Street on the north and south, and Water and Pearl Streets on the east and west. It's currently a parking garage. So what the Howard Hughes Corporation did, they applied for inclusion for the Brownfield Cleanup Program, which is overseen by the state's Department of Environmental Conservation. And basically what they did, they had some representatives that attended our meeting. They gave a presentation on how they are going to go about cleaning the area. There were some representations from local residents, schools, and other businesses around the area. So they did a very good job of presenting the details in terms of what they're going to do to clean. For those of you who haven't seen some of the news reports, they did find some things. Apparently there was a former thermometer factory located in that area, and they found some mercury. They also found like an underground tank with which leaked some petroleum. So the cleanup is certainly very necessary. The second item, Anthony talked about it during the chair's report. There were some representatives from the Mayor's Community Affairs Unit and the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. They just provided some answers to some questions that were posed by Diana and also by Anthony. Aside from that, there was some small discussion regarding the neighborhood advisory councils, but they were unable to provide us with any additional details regarding the Manhattan Detention Center or any of their plans. And that was it.
Thank you.
What's the next step?
Thank you.
What's the next step?
Oh,
Pat has a question.
so they have to apply for this Greenfields program. They fill out an application, we're the repository of all the reports. If the state approves it, then they have to come back with a remediation plan and public notification. So the formal implementation is not developed yet. And the program, listen to this, is voluntary. If they didn't enlist in it, no one would know anything about it or what they have to do.
Right.
So,
It's worth their while to do it, though.
yeah.
And to the correct.
So, there's a lot of eyes on this if they enter the program. And it's been well documented. The report was even done by the Milstein organization before Howard Hughes. So all of this has been known for a while.
Right. So they really had to.
Okay.
Paul,
I think we went over the Borough-based jail, so we can move on to that. All right?
Paul, you're the last votes, so you're going to take.
Okay. It's getting late and it's getting cold, so let's see what we...
Yeah, we turned off the heat. That's a new
They
plan.
turned off the heat, so we got to move along.
We got here, it felt like.
That next to over the bathrooms.
Okay. Let's see, item number 1, I could do very briefly because we're going to have a much longer report on that next month, and that is the East River Esplanade. It's pretty exciting because the city is prepared to invest $21 million to improve that very dilapidated waterfront area on the east side that runs 1 to Catherine Slip in Ward 3. So it's two boards that are both going to have input into this project. And so EDC is the lead agency, and they're in the process of getting community input at this point. So we started the discussion in committee, but we're going to have a much more in-depth discussion of this at our meeting in February. Anyone who's interested should attend. Again, it's a good project. That area really needs improvement. And you've heard about some aspects of it. There's this beach adjacent to the Brooklyn Bridge that a lot of people spoke to, including our borough president. It was very clear that she's in favor of that. This board's on record for that, so I don't think that's going to be an item of controversy. But anyway, more on that next month. Okay, item number 2 is the one that first mentioned, Wedge. No, sorry, we have nothing to do with naming it, but Wedge is a series of guidelines for design of waterfront areas designed to make them good waterfront areas in this day and age of lots of issues with flooding and rising temperatures, etc. So it's basically a series of design standards to maximize resilience, ecology, access, and community involvement. The resolution is, this community board is already on record supporting it.
Yeah.
It's always done this.
Right.
So this is just a series of further support of it. Basically, we're asking that all developers, whether they be private or city, refer to these guidelines and use them as best they can to come up with
300
designs
pages
that
to
are
these
good.
We
Fairly straightforward,
Right.
unless there's any.
And
call the
this-
question.
And there's 300 pages to the guidelines, all available online.
Ready to call the question?
Ready for you? Yes.
All right,
I
all in
second.
favor?
Isn't this the last resolution?
No, one more.
No.
All opposed? You
Mark
opposing,
Ambrose,
Mark? You opposing? Okay. Any abstentions or refusal? Thank you. Okay, Paul.
Okay, and then the waterfront committee did take up the same application, well, not exactly the same, but the same proposal that you heard about earlier that came from Parks Department and Howard Hughes under the FDR Drive of John Street to construct a pavilion or concession. There it is. So basically, our committee looked at the Public Design Commission application. So presumably, they are going to be looking at the design of this building. So whereas obviously other agencies will be looking at other aspects of it. Now, the resolution that we adopted is in favor, but as you heard earlier, and I can repeat it if you need to hear it again, there is very clear language in it that cites our concerns about the view corridor on John Street. So you're talking about a big, John Burley Slip is a very wide street. It has a very dramatic view of the East River and some of those historic boats that dock at the edge.
Pier 15 and 16.
So it's important, we felt, that they maintain this area. So we're certainly citing that in the resolution and saying that urges that the proposed restaurant structure does not obstruct the important John Street, Burley Slip view corridor, East River, and historic vessels. So,
We're going to add that, right? That's been added to this.
as well as a whereas that said earlier proposals from the city for the proposed development of pavilions under the FDR called for the view corridors along South Street to be unobstructed. That came about, just for your information, from the Bloomberg administration when Amanda, who knows this area fairly well, and she was cited as saying this very specifically. So It's not a very radical proposal, frankly.
No, I would think obstructing a view corridor is an absolute non-starter. That's simple, that's all the resolution really needs to cover.
Okay, so
turn
that's,
it around and say we reject it unless it does
well,
not.
that is
Right.
the option that we have, and I'm open to that.
I would think so.
We should do that.
Okay.
More strong. Let's be stronger.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine with me. You got
Yep.
that?
I'm gonna need two things, because there were two friendly amendments,
No,
Right.
this one takes precedent.
and so that's what I'm
Logic.
wondering, where are we going? So the
Logic
friendly
would-
amendment by Roger.
My friendly amendment is that we reject the application unless
Right.
it does not obstruct.
The through door at all. Simple outright rejection.
All right, so where it says that's not opposed, CB1 opposes the application, blah, 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 unless there is clear evidence that this does not create any kind of barrier. or
Unless the
blockage
structure
to
does not
construction.
block.
View corridor must be maintained.
We could fix that up.
It's not complicated. Just no.
You're still making it complicated. Just say, you know, we reject it.
Yeah, unless you have major improvements, this is,
Obstructed.
All right, nobody move, we're doing a roll call on this.
I'm not moving.
Stay put. And you-
Alice, go ahead, speak up. Go
You've
ahead.
got questions, though.
Hang on, Alice has been recognized. I'm still chairing this meeting. You couldn't take me up on harassment.
It's a new no man's land, it's a setting a precedent, there's industry sitting, this is the second pavilion. There doesn't seem to be any kind of need for Mueller, it's just somebody comes in and says, I'm building a restaurant on the FDR. I think we've asked for this resolution
All right, let
to
me
have
just
much
clarify.
more city agencies.
It's in there, Alice.
Later on with community board about what we would be putting.
It's in there.
Well, I think Alice is looking for stronger language again there.
Oh.
So the last be it resolved does address that issue, and that is as for better notification and engagement. I did write revised language, let me read it to you. If you're for it, we'll go with this. CB1 asks that city agencies, including EDC, DPR, Department of Parks and Recreation, DOT, and Department of City Planning, fully engage with CB1 regarding plans for all future programs and structures they envision for the area beneath the FDR Drive.
Yes, I like it.
Okay, so,
Let's put it in, do nothing but put it in.
So that one's approved.
Have
Yep.
okay,
Anthony.
Andrew has his hand up. Anyone else? Okay. Tom, go.
No,
You have to be clear on who gets this improved resolution, because it doesn't go out to, it's liable to public design, hang on for a second. It's liable to multiple agencies that you're calling out here. Who we send it
They have
to.
some jurisdiction over this area.
Right, cool. Okay, Tom, one last one.
I understand it's,
can't tell them all to be quiet in the back.
you know, why it's here, because it was a surprise, and it just happened this way, the way it came to committee. But isn't this perhaps best addressed in a separate kind of a resolution that really acted, sort of goes after the whole concept of the Esplanade? This is a one-off, maybe it's fine, maybe it's not fine.
This is a one-off, but you're right.
But we'll do that next month.
That was part of his first report, Tom, is working on the whole Esplanade issue.
Yeah, we'll do
So
that
yes,
next.
well said.
Last comment right there, Andrew.
Last one, go ahead.
I don't know how many.
I'll vote in favor, but just one question. Do we think this proposed use case can exist and be in compliance with the language we're proposing?
I think they will comply simply from the view corridor.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to make it a smaller facility, which is fine with us.
Okay.
All right, we're going to take a roll call now. Lucian?
Okay, so voting on this resolution as amended. Amoruso. Arias. Burton. Blank.
I'm voting yes, but I just wanted to, I'm unclear. If I will not vote, if we're voting yes, assuming that you will not block John.
We're voting affirmatively that we reject it.
No one left, okay. so please
Fine.
make that amendment.
Okay. Continue to vote.
Yes.
Boyce. Byram.
Yes.
Chapman. Charkoudian.
Yes.
Chu. Cole.
Yes.
Kucha.
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Curtis.
Wasn't fun for me.
Curtis.
Yes.
Ehrlich.
Yes.
Ehrman. Frederickson. Friedman.
Yes.
Excuse me. Roman. Goldstein.
Yes.
Goodkind. Gupta. Jesse.
Yes.
Ovitz.
Yes.
James. Joyce. Canal. Kettering. Copel. Kopelman. Lemire. Lerner. Lewinson. Mahoney. Markel. McHugh. Meltzer.
Yes.
Myhawk.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Notaro.
Yes.
Romero.
Yes.
Schnegg.
That is not for public.
Starr. Sung. Tedesco.
Cap.
Thomas. Townley. Weinstock. G. Zelter.
Zeltzer.
All right, so unless there's any new business or old business, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you and see you on Thursday night.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
This looks like herding cats today.
Okay, that worked.
God. This was herding cats.